May 16th, the year 2167. The world is a graveyard, with the demon race having finally conquered every last inch of human territory. The human world has completely fallen into ruin. Smoke and fire rise from the remains of cities that once thrived. Si Chen, the SSS-Rank Lightning Assassin, is the last one left standing. He leans against a crumbling pillar, gasping for air as blood drips from his wounds. It all started 7 years ago when several demon kings suddenly descended upon the world. They were forces of nature that no military could stop. Demon King Lanyue led the charge with overwhelming power. He and his kin swiftly trampled over the realm of man. Lanyue looks down at the battered hero with pure contempt. He mocks the title of humanity's last hope, calling the entire race nothing but pathetic, fragile trash. The Demon King raises a hand, glowing with a dark, lethal energy. He tells Si Chen it's time to fulfill his only remaining purpose, to die. A sphere of concentrated red power crackles between the demon's claws. The air itself seems to scream from the pressure. Lanyue demands that the assassin become his food and his power. He's ready to swallow the last spark of human resistance. An explosion of red and white light tears through the darkness. The two forces clash in a violent display of energy. Si Chen refuses to be consumed. He grits his teeth, forcing his exhausted body to channel every last drop of mana he has left. He thinks of the faces he'll never see again. His sister, his comrades, his master, all of them were slaughtered by these beasts. The memory of their deaths fuels his final stand. He doesn't care if it's the last thing he does. A blinding light begins to emanate from his chest. He vows to take the Demon King down to hell with him. He screams the name of his suicide move as he ignites his soul. Lightning arches across the sky, turning the night into day. He activates his SSS ultimate skill, Terminus Arc. A massive, devastating sphere of lightning erupts from his position. Lanyue is caught in the epicenter, his expression shifting to pure shock. The demon finds himself paralyzed, unable to escape the blinding surge. Si Chen's body begins to fragment, glowing with an intense white heat. He stares forward with a calm, empty expression as he starts to dissolve. Fragments of his life flash before him like shattered glass. He sees his sister, bloodied and broken in the rain. He remembers the silhouette of his master. It's a lonely, fatting image in the void of his mind. Then a happier memory appears. His parents and his sister when they were still a family. It's a world that feels like a lifetime ago. With his final breath, he whispers that they'll see each other soon. He regrets that he wasn't strong enough to protect them. His form continues to break apart into the light. He wishes he could have just been a little bit stronger. The Demon King rages, cursing the inferior human as the explosion reaches its peak. The blinding light consumes everything. In the white void, Si Chen's thoughts linger on the past. If only he could go back and find that demon lair sooner. If only he could have stopped the very first Demon King before the world burned. The weight of his failure is the last thing he feels. Then everything goes silent. He reflects on how he lost everything so early in the war. Shards of his broken infinity necklace float in the darkness. The light of his sacrifice slowly fades away. A single beam of light illuminates a bed in a dark, quiet room. It's a jarring contrast to the battlefield. Si Chen's eyes snap open. He's lying down, a small bandage across the bridge of his nose. He stares blankly at the ceiling, his hands resting on his stomach. He's completely still, as if he's afraid to move. He sits up, his eyes wide with disbelief. He touches his chest, feeling the steady beat of a heart that should have stopped. He looks around the small, sterile room. He's alone, and the sounds of a busy world drift in from the hallway. He slowly walks toward the window, leaning against the frame. He's still wearing a simple collared shirt and bandages on his arms. Outside, students are walking across a sunlit campus. The sign on the building clearly reads, School Infirmary Hospital. He's stunned to see the world intact. All these people are alive, and there's no sign of the demon invasion. He catches his reflection in the mirror, touching the bandage on his nose. It takes him a long time to accept what he's seeing. The realization hits him like a physical blow. He hasn't just survived. He's returned 10 years into the past, back to his university days. Suddenly, a high-pitched digital sound rings in his head. His eyes dart toward the corner of his vision. A system window flickers into existence before him. It announces that the integration for the power of gluttony is complete. A phone on a nearby table displays the date. May 16th, 2157. It's exactly 10 years before the day he died. He stands by the bedside, staring at the phone. He's back before it all began, and this time, things will be different. Si Chen is visibly shaken as the realization hits him. He's back 3 years before the descent of Demon Kings changed everything. 3 years from now, in 2160, the first Demon King named Wrath will descend. It will be the beginning of the end for humanity. It was Wrath who opened the gates of hell, allowing the other demon kings to follow him into the human world one by one. That moment was the starting point of the apocalypse. Si Chen remembers the total destruction and the reason he lost everything in his previous life. The memory is a dark shadow over his current surroundings. He looks at his hands, open and trembling with a mix of shock and hope. He is finally back in a time where he can make a difference. A fierce determination burns in his eyes. If he can defeat Wrath, the first one to appear, he can prevent the gates from ever opening and change the future for everyone. A digital notification floats in front of him, announcing that the integration for the power of gluttony is now finished. The white lines of the interface hum with energy. Si Chen stares at the floating window, wondering about this power of gluttony interface. It's been following his every movement ever since he opened his eyes. He reaches out, his palm hovering beneath the glowing digital shards of the interface as he tries to make sense of the situation. His eyes widen as the interface expands, revealing a complex set of windows and data points. He's startled by the sheer amount of information suddenly presented to him. The system displays his stats. Level 1 with all attributes like strength, speed, and spirit balanced at 100. He wonders if these represent his current potential in this new life. He stares intently at the game-like data, his expression unreadable. He's never encountered anything like this system in all his years of fighting demons. In the past, he only relied on his awakened power to survive. He knows that in this world, only 1 in 10,000 people are lucky enough to become an awakener. The school he's currently attending is the National Awakener University, which only recruits those with the potential to awaken. It's an elite institution with high stakes. He remembers his original timeline, where he failed to awaken during his university years. He spent 4 years at the very bottom of the food chain, constantly bullied and beat. He ponders his situation with a skeptical look, wondering if this strange system is the reason he woke up in the infirmary this time around. Something else catches his attention within the interface as he scans the data. A familiar term flashes before his eyes. It's an archive file for a Lightning Assassin class. The screen lists powerful abilities like Lightning God and Lightning Blade, which use electricity to paralyze and destroy. He recognizes it immediately as his class from his previous life. He wonders if this is more than just a coincidence. A surge of power begins to flow through his body, much more than he should have at this age. He questions if his past strength was somehow inherited along with his memories. He wonders if he has awakened early this time. A second-class card, the Devourer, appears in the glowing interface. Si Chen decides to test the limits of this new power. The interface displays a switching class message as it begins to process his request. He snaps his fingers to finalize the command. The system hums with a sharp digital sound. Suddenly, a student with glasses bursts into the room, looking surprised. This is Ma Long, a rank E flower chanter. Ma Long rushes to Si Chen's side, relieved that his buddy is finally awake. He frantically asks if his body is feeling okay after the beating he took. Si Chen realizes that he's the only one who can see the system interface floating between them. He reassures Ma Long that he's feeling fine. Ma Long is completely shocked, looking Si Chen up and down. He can't believe that all the injuries from yesterday's beating have already vanished. Ma Long is Si Chen's university roommate. He's always been an anxious type, especially given his low rank. Si Chen reflects on his roommate's past fate. Ma Long was a bottom-tier awakener who died tragically just 3 days after the Demon Kings arrived. Seeing him alive and well right in front of his eyes is a surreal experience. Ma Long adjusts his glasses, convinced that his friend has somehow grown stronger. Si Chen smiles faintly as he takes in the sight of his old friend. In this moment, he truly feels that he has returned to the past. Ma Long reminds him that they can't waste time because tomorrow is the rank test. He insists they get back and start preparing immediately. He drags Si Chen toward the door, emphasizing that the graduation evaluation is crucial even if he hasn't awakened yet. The roommate is full of nervous energy. The sun sets over the National Awakener University, casting a warm glow over the sprawling campus. It's a peaceful scene that feels like a dream. Students are gathered in groups across the campus, chatting and practicing their minor abilities. It's a lively environment filled with normal light. On the training field, a student demonstrates his strength by kicking a ball with such force that it creates a shockwave. Si Chen watches, taking it all in. Si Chen walks through the crowd, admitting to himself that it's been a very long time since he's seen so many living people. Ma Long looks at him with a confused, worried expression. Ma Long suggests they just take a walk around the playground to clear their heads. He's clearly weirded out by his friend's strange comments. Si Chen walks with a solemn expression, his thoughts returning to the future he once knew. He can never forget the day everything was lost. He looks back at a mental vision of the ruined future. He knows that if he does nothing, that same desperate fate will eventually come back for them all. A cold resolve settles over him. He knows he must take action immediately and increase his level as fast as humanly possible. In this era, there's only one proven way for an awakener to grow stronger. He must hunt and kill the monsters lurking within the demon lairs. Si Chen reflects on the current state of the world, where almost all demon lairs are monopolized by major guilds. This system leaves outsiders with virtually zero chance of leveling up on their own. He looks at the glowing system screen displaying his name and attributes. If these are indeed his current stats, he wonders how he measures up against other awakeners and the monsters he'll face. To regulate the distribution of power, the government has classified both awakeners and monsters into ranks. The hierarchy goes from S at the highest down through A, B, C, D, and E at the lowest. He notes that the vast majority of students at the university never progress past E rank. Only the occasional genius or those with substantial guild backing manage to reach D rank. Although he can estimate his strength based on his memories, he wonders what official rank he would be assigned today. The question of his current potential lingers as he walks. Si Chen glances at Ma Long, who is looking at him with a confused and curious expression. He is confident that his own power is already far beyond that of his roommate. Without warning, a soccer ball streaks through the air and strikes Ma Long directly in the face with a sickening thud. The impact is forceful enough to send the boy reeling. Ma Long collapses onto the ground, his glasses shattered and blood spilling from his nose. He groans in pain, clutching his face while the world around him blurs. A group of students watches from the nearby stairs, their laughter ringing across the courtyard. One of them shouts out, mockingly identifying Si Chen and Ma Long. The leader of the group is Gong Cheng, a muscular student with a buzz cut and dog tags hanging from his neck. He leans back with a smug grin, nodding that the two of them recovered surprisingly fast. Ma Long looks up at the group in pure terror, the realization of who they've encountered sinking in. He stammers about their terrible luck as he recognizes Gong Cheng. Si Chen remains silent, his back to the camera as he stares at the bullies. He recognizes these faces from his past, the ones who made his university life a living hell. Gong Cheng laughs, boasting to his friends that he knew these two were tough enough to handle a little fun. His eyes are fixed on the pair below with predatory interest. His tone turns sharp as he demands to know why they didn't bring him any drinks when they knew he'd be playing ball here. He expects absolute submission from those he deems weaker. Panic-stricken, Ma Long immediately begins to apologize, his voice shaking. He offers to run and buy the drinks for them right now, just to avoid further violence. Si Chen steps forward, his eyes burning with a cold fire as he tells Ma Long that he isn't the one at fault. He looks directly at Gong Cheng, refusing to back down. Chap 2, Gong Cheng watches from his seat on the stairs, surrounded by his laughing lackeys. He enjoys the feeling of power that comes from intimidating others. He repeats his comment about their fast recovery, his words dripping with a malicious edge. He's clearly looking for an excuse to start another fight. Ma Long is still trembling, his face a mask of fear as he laments their bad luck. He's already defeated in his own mind, conditioned by years of abuse. Si Chen doesn't look away from the group sitting above them. He knows exactly what kind of people they are and what they are capable of. Gong Cheng smirks at his companions, reaffirming his belief that these two are the perfect targets. He treats their suffering as nothing more than a source of entertainment. Si Chen's red eyes glow intensely as memories of the past begin to surface. The sight of Gong Cheng triggers a flood of dark, buried images from his previous life. A traumatic memory flashes back. Si Chen is underwater, bubbles rising as he struggles to breathe. The sounds of the world are muffled and distant as he panics. The flashback reveals Gong Cheng and his friends in a school bathroom. They are laughing as they forcefully hold Si Chen's head down into a sink full of water. In the memory, Ma Long is on the floor nearby, frantically begging the bullies to stop. He is helpless to do anything but watch as his friend is tortured. Gong Cheng looks back at Ma Long with a cruel smile, asking why he should stop. He mockingly claims that he's only helping Si Chen awaken his latent powers. He shoves Si Chen's head deeper into the water, ignoring his desperate struggles. He taunts him for being a failure who hasn't awakened even after all this stimulation. The bullies' laughter fills the room, a sharp and mocking sound that contrasts with the victim's silence. They find joy in the absolute control they have over their peers. Growing bored with their toy, the group decides to leave, joking about how pathetic Si Chen is. They walk away without a single shred of remorse for what they've done. Ma Long rushes to Si Chen's side as he lies gasping on the wet bathroom floor. He calls out his name, his voice filled with worry and relief that his friend is still alive. Drenched from head to toe, Si Chen's face remained shrouded in shadow. In a low, raspy whisper, he asked why people like this never knew when to let go, and why they were so hell-bent on tormenting others. He realizes that pure malice isn't something that only exists within the demon lairs. It's a force that is very much alive and well in the human world they are trying to protect. The thought hangs in the air against a backdrop of deep black. The realization that the world is inherently cruel is a heavy burden for him to carry once again. His question was like a spark striking the bullies' egos. Gong Cheng turned his head, his eyes flashing with an eerie green light as he smirked. He suggested to the group that they should play with Si Chen a little more. And that is how we end up with the scene of Si Chen lying broken in the infirmary. Cutting back to the present, the bulky student with the buzz cut and military tags leans back with a smug grin. He's demanding to know why his classmates didn't bring enough drinks for his ball game. Ma Long, a boy with messy brown hair and large round glasses, bows frantically. He stammers out an apology and offers to go buy the drinks right away to avoid more trouble. Si Chen, the black-haired student standing nearby, looks on with a sharp, cold gaze. He tells his friend that he isn't the one who should be apologizing. Gong Cheng's face drops into a dull, unimpressed stare. He can't quite believe what he just heard from someone he considers a nobody. Ma Long is visibly sweating, his eyes wide behind his glasses. He's terrified that Si Chen's sudden backbone is going to get them both into a world of pain. Gong Cheng steps forward, his body glowing with a sickly green energy as he activates his E-rank flower warrior ability. His arms transform into rough, bark-like wood, crackling with a primitive power. Si Chen's eyes flash a dangerous red as he focuses on his opponent. He doesn't look intimidated by the supernatural display at all. Gong Cheng is the type who only picks on the weak because his older brother is the student council president. He stands tall, showing off his transformed limbs to the gathering crowd of students. Despite his big talk, Gong Cheng's own abilities aren't actually that impressive compared to a true warrior. He starts walking towards Si Chen, ready to make a brutal example of him. The surrounding students start whispering, anticipating the usual beatdown. They fully expect Gong Cheng to stomp the two most useless guys in the school. It looks like a total mismatch. A low-rank awakener facing off against a weakling and a guy who hasn't even awakened yet. The onlookers can already see the outcome in their heads. Gong Cheng looms over Si Chen, his shadow stretching across the ground. The difference in their physical builds is massive, but Si Chen doesn't move an inch. Gong Cheng tilts his head back, glaring down at Si Chen with pure arrogance. He asks what exactly he just said, daring him to repeat it to his face. Si Chen looks him straight in the eye, his expression flat and unimpressed. He tells the bully simply not to come bother them ever again. That's all the excuse Gong Cheng needs to snap. He swings a massive, wood-armored fist towards Si Chen's head, determined to put the unawakened loser back in his place. A loud crack echoed across the court as the punch connected, but not with its intended target. Si Chen punched straight into the giant, wood-armored fist, stopping it dead in its tracks. A counterattack that was on a whole different level, executed with the ultimate cool of a young man. The impact sent a jolt of pain through the bully, forcing him to stumble back in agony. The crowd is stunned into silence, their eyes popping at the sight. No one can believe that an unawakened nobody just blocked a direct hit from Gong Cheng. Si Chen stands his ground, looking completely unfazed by the exchange. He watches the bully struggle to find his footing, his mind already calculating the next move. Gong Cheng's face twists in rage, unable to accept that he was just pushed back. He can't understand how an unawakened weakling could possibly challenge a ranker like him. Si Chen raises his hand, and a job switching notification appears in the air. He decides it's the perfect time to test out his new system on this loudmouth. The interface flashes, job switch complete, as Si Chen's stats are updated. He's now a level 1 electric assassin, and bolts of lightning begin to dance across his skin. Ma Long is absolutely losing it, his jaw hanging open as he watches his friend transform. He's never seen anything like this, especially not from someone who was supposedly powerless. Si Chen stands wreathed in crackling yellow electricity, looking every bit like the SSS-Rank killer he used to be. The air around him hums with lethal energy. Gong Cheng refuses to back down and activates his indestructible demon armor. His wooden arms grow spikes and thicken into a much more defensive, heavy form. He charges forward again, throwing what he calls his killer jab. The sheer size of the armored fist dwarfs Si Chen as it closes in for a finishing blow. Si Chen doesn't even flinch, leaning into the attack with a blur of motion. He weaves through the punch with the ease of a veteran fighter who has seen much worse. With a crackle of lightning, Si Chen's fist connects squarely with Gong Cheng's jaw. The force of the blow shatters the bully's defense in an instant. Gong Cheng is sent spiraling through the air, blood spraying from his mouth as the impact carries him away. He crashes hard into the pavement, tumbling like a rag doll. The spectators are completely speechless, their faces frozen in pure disbelief. They just saw the school's notorious bully get handled in a single move. Ma Long can only stare in shock, his mind racing to make sense of what just happened. His friend isn't just different, he's a completely different monster. Si Chen stood calmly in the middle of the courtyard, his silhouette glowing with the fading remnants of his lightning. The entire campus was in an absolute frenzy over the sudden turn of events unfolding right before their eyes. Gong Cheng grovels on the ground, clutching his broken face while spitting out insults. He tries to claim it was just a sneak attack, refusing to admit he was outclassed. Desperate and humiliated, Gong Cheng screams at his buddies to stop standing around and help him. He wants Si Chen dead for making him look pathetic. One of his lackeys looks on with a trembling jaw, unable to move a muscle. The sheer pressure coming off Si Chen is enough to keep anyone from stepping forward. Si Chen looms like a dark god, his eyes glowing with an intense, golden light. He looks ready to tear through anyone else foolish enough to challenge him. Gong Cheng ignores his fear and lunges again, screaming that he'll kill Si Chen. He puts everything he has into one final, desperate strike with his remaining strength. Si Chen catches the massive, armored arm with ease once again. The lightning crackling from his fingers begins to eat away at the wood-like armor like it's nothing. With a sudden surge of power, Si Chen crushes the armored forearm, the sound of breaking wood and bone filling the air. Gong Cheng's scream of agony echoes across the campus. Si Chen stares him down with cold, glowing eyes, telling him plainly that he's just too weak. To a former SSS rank, this guy isn't even a challenge. He delivers a final, lightning-charged punch that explodes against Gong Cheng's chest. The shockwave of electricity and force is absolutely devastating. Gong Cheng is blasted backward, his body smoking as he's sent flying once and for all. Si Chen watches him fall, the fight over before it ever really began. Gong Cheng is left embedded in the bleachers, his body nearly collapsing into the crater made by the impact. He slumps against the cracked concrete, blood streaming down his face as he coughs and gasps for air. Si Chen stands in the center of the yard, looking completely bored as the other students watch from a distance. Ma Long can only kneel nearby, stunned by the sudden display of power. Ma Long's brain is struggling to process what he just saw, his eyes wide and sweat pouring down his face. Si Chen stares at the blood on his knuckles, his expression as cold as ice. Ma Long can't help but wonder when his friend became such a monster. Si Chen scans his system window, nodding his level and flat stats of 100 across the board. He's starting to piece together how his old abilities have translated to this new life. Crackling yellow lightning begins to dance around Si Chen as he tests his electric assassin state. He realizes he can tap into this power whenever he needs to. Even at level 1, his basic physical stats are enough to handle a low ranker like Gong Cheng. It's clear that his current grade is far beyond an E, though the system won't confirm it yet. But there's a catch that Si Chen hasn't figured out yet. He narrows his eyes, focusing on a problem that doesn't show up in his status window. He looks back at the beaten Gong Cheng, confused as to why his stats haven't budged after the victory. Lightning sparks in the palm of his hand as he contemplates the lack of progress. Something about the way he's gaining power in this timeline is different. Ma Long and the others are in a state of pure panic, yelling for Si Chen to stop before things get even worse. Si Chen doesn't listen, grabbing a terrified Gong Cheng by the throat while bolts of electricity arc across his arm. His eyes glow with a lethal, yellow light as he wonders if the method for gaining experience is the same as in his past. He raises a fist, the air humming with high-voltage energy as he prepares to deliver another brutal blow. A woman in a sharp blazer and black skirt approaches, her heels clicking against the pavement as she calls out to him. Lingyu, the vice president of the student council, steps in with a playful but firm smile. She tells Si Chen that Gong Cheng has had enough and that it's time to stop. She leans in with a wink, promising that the bully won't be bothering anyone again after a beating like that. Si Chen stands over his victim, his silhouette dark against the setting sun as Lanyue watches him closely. He meets her gaze with a flat stare, wondering why the student council is so quick to step in for a guy like Gong Cheng. As he walks away with Ma Long, Si Chen knows that mere deterrence isn't enough for people who don't know their place. If they aren't completely broken, they'll just keep coming back. Gong Cheng's lackeys cowered in a corner, paralyzed by fear. They didn't even dare to look Si Chen in the eye, whispering to each other about how terrifying his expression was. Ma Long hurries after him, still trying to wrap his head around the fact that the school's biggest loser just became its most dangerous student. Lanyue stays behind, her purple eyes fixed on Si Chen's back with a look of genuine curiosity. Later that night, the campus of the men's dormitory falls into a quiet, uneasy calm. Inside their room, Ma Long is practically vibrating with excitement, shouting about how Si Chen has finally awakened. He tells their other roommates that the school gangs are going to think twice before messing with them now. Xiang Zhuo, a roommate with an undercut and a bad attitude, listens with a look of pure boredom. He pokes Ma Long in the head, mocking the idea of an awakener needing to do basic cardio in the rain. Across the room, Xiang Yu doesn't even look up from his computer, convinced that Ma Long has finally lost his mind. Xiang Zhu reminds them that they're all in this bottom-tier dorm for a reason. In his eyes, they are the 4 biggest failures in the entire school. He conjures a small orb of red magic in his hand, his face twisting into a sneer as he tries to assert dominance. He claims that awakening more than one class is impossible, labeling Ma Long and the others as nothing more than useless support types. Xiang Zhu boasts that he is the only one in the room with a real combat class, a nucleus mage. He admires his own muscles, convinced that he's been getting stronger and might actually make it into a decent club soon. But on this side, Xiang Yu reminded everyone that the final rank test is tomorrow, and that's when their true worth will be put on display. Elsewhere, a massive portal burns with a fierce, yellow flame at the entrance of the E-rank training demon lair. A man in a white lab coat steps through the shimmering gate, his presence commanding respect from the guards. Gong Ting, the student council president, walks out of the training zone with a stoic expression. Lanyue follows close behind, her eyes scanning the area. Gong Ting orders the training session to end for the day, his voice calm and authoritative as the other students bow. He stops and looks over his shoulder, sensing someone waiting in the shadows. He finds Gong Cheng leaned against the wall, his head and arms covered in heavy bandages as he waits for his older brother. Gong Cheng, his face a mess of bandages and medical tape, is absolutely fuming as he shouts at his older brother. He can't stand the humiliation and demands that Gong Ting take care of the guy who did this to him. Gong Ting remains perfectly stoic, his eyes fixed on some distant point while his brother rants about how he was bullied in front of everyone. After a long silence, Gong Ting's yellow eyes narrow as he gives a simple, cold response, promising to handle the situation personally. The sharp blade of a steak knife glides effortlessly through a thick, rare piece of meat, the juice pooling on the white porcelain plate. Gong Ting and Lanyue are seated at a long, candle-lit dining table in a room that screams old-school wealth. Lanyue leans back, casually asking what his plan is for dealing with the newcomer who beat his brother. Gong Ting doesn't answer immediately, his gaze shifting to the side as he considers whether this Si Chen is truly as powerful as the reports suggest. Lanyue sits elegantly in an ornate red chair, noting that Gong Ting has already scouted every high-ranking student in the school for his club. She points out that with fewer than 10 D ranks in the entire student body, he's practically monopolized the top talent. She leans in slightly, her purple eyes glinting in the candlelight as she mentions that most students don't have the same access to high-level demon lairs that he does. In her view, those at the bottom have no real path for improvement, forever trapped in their mediocre ranks while the elite continue to grow stronger. Far from the luxury of the dining hall, Si Chen is out on the school's running track, his silhouette a lonely figure moving through the heavy night rain. He's pushing himself to the limit, carrying 100 kilograms of weight while grinding out a 20-kilometer run despite the downpour. His mind is focused on the science of awakening, knowing that physical strength is the foundation upon which extreme class powers are built. He believes that without a strong enough vessel, no one can truly harness their full potential. Rainwater streams down Si Chen's face, but his expression never wavers from its cold, intense focus. He knows that his current level of training is still nowhere near what he needs to face the horrors of the future. His thoughts drift back to the year 2160, A time of utter despair when the Demon King known as Wrath emerged from the demon lair to bring ruin to the world. In his memory, the sky is a hellish shade of red, filled with the massive, writhing tentacles of the Demon King as it begins its slaughter of humanity. The most painful memory is of his sister, Si Chen, lying lifeless in his arms under a gray, rain-slicked sky. The text on the screen is a stark reminder that she was murdered by the Demon King's own hands. The silhouette of Wrath looms over a pile of corpses, the gate of hell forced open behind him to let the other Demon Kings spill into the mortal realm. Back in the present, Si Chen's eyes burn with a dark, vengeful light. He has set a singular, absolute goal for this first stage of his new life. A demonic, star-marked eye stares back from the darkness of his memory, representing the monster that took everything from him. His mission is clear. He must kill Wrath. He calculates the time he has left, knowing that there are only 3 years before the Demon King's descent. He has to grow faster than the monster if he wants to change history. Suddenly, the vibration of a phone breaks his concentration, and he looks down to see a name on the screen that shouldn't be there. The caller ID shows a picture of a smiling Si Chen, her hair in pigtails, with the text "incoming call" flashing brightly against the dark, rainy background. Si Chen puts in his earpiece, his hand trembling slightly as he answers the call from the sister he thought he'd lost forever. Si Chen's voice is energetic and loud, immediately complaining about how many times he called her today. Si Chen stands motionless in the middle of the track, listening to her voice like it's a miracle. She excitedly tells him about a competition she's entered, hoping that winning the prize money will finally solve their problems with the rent. Si Chen closes his eyes, his internal monologue revealing how many times he prayed to the heavens in his past life for a chance to start over and save her. Si Chen notices the silence and asks if it's raining on his end, her playful voice a sharp contrast to the cold reality of the stormy night. A small, sad smile touches Si Chen's lips as tears begin to mix with the rain on his cheeks. He manages to choke out that it's nothing, trying to keep his voice steady. He admits to himself that he just needed to hear her voice again, the simple sound of her breathing enough to validate everything he's gone through. Si Chen remains oblivious to his turmoil, promising to see him as soon as her competition is over, and telling him to wait for her good news. As the call ends, Si Chen looks up at the rainy sky, finally accepting that his life has truly begun again. He turns and starts running again with renewed vigor, shouting to himself that he has 3 more laps to go. The determination in his heart is absolute. He will become stronger than anyone at any cost to protect the sister he has been given back. 8 hours have passed since his return to the past, and Si Chen finally makes it back to the quiet, dark dormitory where his roommates are fast asleep. He stands under a hot shower, the steam filling the small bathroom as he tries to get used to the feel of his younger, less battle-hardened body. After drying off, he wraps himself in a dark robe and begins to contemplate the biggest obstacle in his path to power. He sits on the edge of his bed, well aware that leveling up in this era is controlled by the powerful guilds who monopolize the demon lairs. Lying back on his pillow, he stares at the ceiling, wondering how a low-rank student like him can even get close to the monsters he needs to hunt for experience. As he drifts into a light sleep, his thoughts turn to the one ability that could bypass all the rules of this world: the power of gluttony. The screen fades to black as a digital interface begins to manifest in the void of his mind, the words "system booting" appearing in red. A loading bar slowly fills up, signaling the activation of a hidden part of his soul that has been dormant until now. The loading is complete, and the consciousness of Si Chen is plunged into a vibrant, red digital space, his body falling through a sea of data and fragments. The Gluttony System interface flashes across the screen in bold white letters, signaling the successful boot-up of the mysterious power. In the background, Si Chen is a tiny, falling figure against the glowing pink gradient of his subconscious mind. As he accelerated through the void, Si Chen's face was filled with shock, his body tensing up in preparation for the unknown transition. The wind from his descent shrieked past him as the digital space began to solidify. He lands with a dynamic crouch, dark energy splashing up from the ground like liquid fire around his legs. The impact sends a shockwave through the thick red mist that blankets the floor of this strange dimension. A colossal, thorn-covered pillar rises from a sea of blood-red water, its jagged peak lost in the swirling purple clouds far above. Si Chen stands at its base, a small black silhouette completely isolated in the middle of this vast, nightmarish landscape. Si Chen looks around in disbelief, his brow furrowed as he tries to piece together how he traveled from his bed to this hellish space. He stands in his dark robe, his red eyes scanning the unfamiliar horizon for any sign of life or an exit. Cutting back to the reality of the dormitory, the roommates wake up to find Si Chen's bed empty once again. Ma Long adjusts his glasses and awkwardly suggests to the others that Si Chen must have headed out for another one of his grueling runs. Si Chen woke up in the middle of a pitch-black void. One moment he was fast asleep in his dormitory, and the next, he found himself plummeting through an endless darkness. He sticks the landing on a vast, blood-red sea. Behind him, a massive, jagged tower of bone and stone pierces the crimson sky. He looks around in total confusion. He was just in his bed a second ago, and now he's standing in a nightmare. The tower looms over him, its surface covered in twisted, demonic carvings. He wonders what kind of place he's stumbled into. Suddenly, something stirs beneath the red waves. A pair of skeletal, pale creatures crawl out of the water, eyes fixed on him. The system identifies them as death hounds. They're only E-rank, but they look hungry enough to rip a man apart in seconds. A screen pops up. The system is switching his class. Yellow lightning begins to spark and coil around his hands. The switch is complete. Si Chen is now a level 1 lightning assassin, and he's not waiting around to see what the hounds do next. The monsters lunge at him from all sides. They're fast, but the lightning surging through his body makes him faster. Si Chen blurs into a streak of electricity. He cuts through the air, leaving nothing but a yellow trail and a dead hound behind him. A fist connects with a hound's skull, shattering it into pieces. A notification confirms he's already picking up loot from the kills. He keeps moving, a whirlwind of strikes and electric shocks. Even with his low level, these monsters can't even touch his clothes. One more strike and the last hound falls. For Si Chen, dealing with E-rank fodder like this is basically child's play. He watches the blood drip from his hands. The smell, the texture, it's too vivid to be a dream. A golden light washes over him as he levels up. He realizes that this place isn't just real. It's a literal goldmine for experience points. His stats jump by 5 points across the board. The feeling of power returning to his body is intoxicating. A grin spreads across his face. He's basically found a secret dungeon that he can farm all by himself. The ground trembles as a massive shadow falls over him. It's an E-rank boss, the Death Forest King. The beast lets out a roar that sends a blast of energy forward. Si Chen doesn't flinch. He's ready to see how far he can push himself. He dodges the attack and delivers a series of lightning-fast counters. Each hit drains the boss's health, and the experience points start rolling in. The boss goes down, and another golden light signals his third level up. He's climbing the ranks faster than anyone in history. The victory screen pops up, showing off his new loot. He's got fangs, crystals, and a whole lot of progress. He checks his status window again. Level 3 in just a few minutes. At this rate, he'll be a monster in no time. He stands over the massive corpse of the boss. Suddenly, a bright red tag appears over the body. Devourable. Si Chen stares at the notification, his eyes narrowing. He's never seen a prompt like this before. He wonders if this is a unique part of the system he's awakened. He reaches out his hand, and a strange, pulsing energy begins to glow. His eyes flare with a sinister red light. He thinks back to the legend of the power of gluttony. A violent vortex of dark energy erupts from his palm. It latches onto the boss's corpse and begins to tear it apart from the inside. The entire monster is sucked into the vortex, condensing down into a single point of light in his fist. The process is finished, and a blue hologram card appears in front of him. It's the Death Forest King, condensed into a usable form. He realizes he can actually take the powers of his enemies and turn them into his own classes. His eyes widen as he reads the card's description. The ability it gives him is beyond anything a normal human should have. A vision of Demon King Lanyue flashes through his mind. This power feels identical to the one that destroyed the world in his past life. He compares his own aura to the memory of the Demon King's. It's a perfect match. He realizes the truth. He's stolen the Demon King's ultimate power for himself. In this world, every hunter is born with a single class that they can never change. It's an absolute law of nature. But now, Si Chen holds 2 separate classes in his hands at the same time. He's already broken the rules. He looks out at the horizon, where hordes of other monsters are waiting. He realizes that if he can devour them, he can have everything. A cold determination fills his gaze. He won't just be a hero, he'll possess every class in existence. He looks up at the sky, wondering why he was chosen to carry this terrifying burden. He turns back toward the massive demonic tower. It stands there like a silent challenge, waiting for him to step inside. Si Chen is immediately hit with a heavy, suffocating pressure as a massive silhouette looms over him. He can barely stand under the weight of the raw power radiating from the figure. He looks up, sweating, as he realizes he's outclassed. He wonders what could possibly be generating this much killing intent in a place like this. A towering figure in tattered robes emerges from a burst of purple flames. It tells him that it's been waiting a long time for his arrival. The system identifies the entity as Purgatory Rakshasa. The name itself is glitched, a chaotic mess of data that hints at its true, terrifying nature. A massive shockwave tears through the air as the two clash. The government's ranking system flashes in his mind. This thing is a world-class threat. Si Chen is sent tumbling back as the Rakshasa attacks with blinding speed. He barely manages to get a hand down to steady himself as blood spatters the ground. He clenches his teeth, lightning sparking around his fist. In his past life, he almost died just to reach S-rank, and right now, he's barely at a D-rank level. The Purgatory Rakshasa stands calmly in the Red Sea, dual purple blades at its side. The gap between them is a literal abyss. Its stats are completely crushing his own. Si Chen grips his lightning-imbued daggers, looking around the hellish landscape. He's never heard of an S-rank boss lurking in a place like this before. He wipes the blood from his mouth, staring up at the hooded monster. The most disturbing part isn't its power, it's how the thing actually knows his name. They've already traded dozens of blows in a matter of seconds. Si Chen realizes with a sinking feeling that the Rakshasa has had plenty of chances to end him already. The Rakshasa swings its massive blade, sending Si Chen flying back once more. It's a clean hit that knocks the wind right out of him. He struggles to push himself up from the red water, gasping for air. Every one of the boss's strikes has avoided his vitals, as if it's just trying to break his will. The Purgatory Rakshasa looks down at him, its glowing blue eyes filled with a cold, mocking light. It asks if he's still planning to struggle against the inevitable. Si Chen glares back, his shirt torn and his body covered in bruises. He understands now. This thing doesn't just want to kill him, it wants him to submit. The monster offers him a choice to stay and guard the demonic tower together. It calls this a rare opportunity, as if being a prisoner is some kind of honor. He doesn't hesitate for a second. No matter the cost, he's never going to spend the rest of his life rotting away in this hellhole. He stands tall, a single vertical line of purple energy crackling between them. He's choosing the hard way, even if it means certain death. The Rakshasa's patience finally snaps as a wave of dark, blood-like energy erupts from its form. Si Chen braces himself for the inevitable fallout. It raises its blade, the purple glow intensifying. It warns him that he's only alive because he's the only one capable of being here. Massive skeletal remains start to rise from the Red Sea as purple wisps of soul energy dance around them. Si Chen stands his ground, dwarfed by the carnage. The boss starts to glow with an even more violent aura as its stats skyrocket. It gives him one last chance to either stay or be crushed into a pulp. Colossal boulders are ripped from the ground, hovering in the air behind the Rakshasa. It looks like a god of destruction preparing to wipe out an ant. Si Chen's eyes glow with a fierce yellow light as lightning starts to dance across his skin. He makes his final choice right then and there. He chooses to kill it. He launches himself forward, a blur of electricity cutting through the crimson air. The Rakshasa called his effort ridiculous as it controlled a barrage of dark energy and floating boulders, sending them hurtling straight towards Si Chen to crush him. The entire area was consumed by the collision, but Si Chen didn't flinch for a second. He transformed into a streak of lightning, using the floating boulders as stepping stones to charge straight ahead. The boss prepares another swing, its massive blade raised high. Si Chen keeps his eyes locked on the target, analyzing every single movement. He's been watching closely since the very beginning of the fight. He's already seen through the monster's attack patterns. He's timed it down to the millisecond. Before every swing, the Rakshasa has a brief, 4/10 of a second wind-up. He predicts the exact path of the blade and dodges by a hair's breadth. The massive weapon misses him completely, crashing into the ground behind him. More importantly, he's spotted a second flaw, a 2/10 of a second recovery lag after every strike. That's all the opening he needs. The Purgatory Rakshasa is momentarily defenseless. Si Chen leans in, lightning gathering in his palm for a final, desperate strike. He unleashes his lightning blade, a focused burst of electricity aimed straight for the boss's heart. He knows a D-rank can't kill an S-rank, but that's not his goal. The strike connects, and a paralyzed status icon flashes over the boss. This full power burst should be enough to hold it in place for just a few precious seconds. Si Chen activates his ultimate movement skill, Lightning God. It infuses his entire body with electricity, boosting his movement speed by 10 times. These few seconds of paralysis are his only chance to escape. He turns into a bolt of pure lightning, streaking across the Red Sea. He's been scanning the area during the entire battle. He heads straight for the only light source in this dark dimension. He reaches out a hand, his fingers almost touching the glowing exit portal. This is it. He's finally out of here. But just as he's about to pass through, the light source completely vanishes. He's left suspended in midair, a look of pure shock on his face. The Rakshasa looms behind him as the purple energy flares up again. It tells him that the exit was just an illusion it left behind. The monster's terrifying form towers over him once more, its eyes glowing with newfound interest. It's impressed that he could find the flaws in its attacks so quickly. Purgatory Rakshasa stands tall, its form wreathed in violet soul fire. It looks down at the human, acknowledging that he is the one who can finally bring hope to this void. The boss's voice resonates through the empty space, repeating the conviction that Si Chen is the hope it has been waiting for. Si Chen stares back, a cold sweat breaking on his brow. He recognizes this monstrous appearance. He saw it once before on Demon King Lanyue himself. Rakshasa observes that even under the crushing pressure of despair, the boy can calmly analyze his situation to find a path forward. Chap 5, Si Chen's gaze narrows as the realization hits him fully. The Purgatory Rakshasa's form is identical to one of the shapes the Demon King once took. A blinding explosion of golden light and lightning flashes through his mind, a fragment of a memory from a different era. He remembers the final battle of his previous life, where he faced a nightmarish creature with glowing red eyes and frozen armor. During that war, the enemy switched between several high-rank classes effortlessly, including a massive white ice dragon that filled the sky. Another form emerges in his memory, a hulking, golem-like beast wreathed in fire and smoke that laid waste to everything around it. He recalls a terrifying green entity made of twisted vines and toxic energy that strangled the life out of the battlefield. At the center of it all was a figure of absolute power, glowing so brightly that the world seemed to dissolve into pure energy. He remembers every single one of those many forms with perfect, painful clarity. They were the apex of destruction. Purgatory Rakshasa stands before him now, its skeletal armor and horned helm radiating the exact same aura as Lanyue's transformations. The similarity is too perfect to be a coincidence. This being bore this exact appearance in the past life. He pieces it together. This creature must have been devoured by Lanyue's gluttony, and now that power is part of Si Chen's own body. He looks at the boss, his voice barely a whisper as he begins to ask the impossible question. A wide shot reveals the massive tower reflecting in the blood-red sea. Si Chen realizes with a start that this entire hellish landscape exists inside him. Rakshasa's grin widens, its blue eyes gleaming with approval. It praises his razor-sharp mind and declares him worthy of the inheritance. Si Chen is stunned by the weight of the boss's words, wondering what it means to be worthy of everything here. A golden, clawed key with a ruby gem manifests in the air, identified by the system as the SSS-Rank Key of the Void. It is the only way to open the tower's gates. The Rakshasa explains that the tower houses the strongest of the countless demons Lanyue once devoured. They have all been sealed away, waiting for a master. Si Chen holds the glowing key as the system confirms he has obtained it. Rakshasa tells him to devour the prisoners and use them as fuel to grow stronger. Wounded and exhausted, Si Chen looks up and asks the creature why it's helping him after they just tried to kill each other. The boss explains that even among demons, there is a line between good and evil. The Demon Kings slaughtered its entire kin just to satisfy their own bottomless greed. Purgatory Rakshasa flares with a violent purple aura, its voice filled with a centuries-old hatred. It has waited an eternity for a chance at revenge. The boss looks at him with solemn eyes, stating that that guy was right. Si Chen is the only hope for success. Si Chen is left confused, wondering who this mysterious, that guy, could possibly be. What person could have predicted his arrival here? The Rakshasa points toward the towering structure, telling him that all the answers he seeks are hidden inside. He must find them himself. The monster's head begins to crumble into glowing fragments of light. It urges him to take its power and use it to make their enemies pay. Si Chen watches in shock as the powerful being begins to dissolve before his very eyes, offering itself up to him. Rakshasa's face is a mask of determination as it fades, commanding him to become unstoppable from this moment forward. It tells him to open the gates and devour everything within the demonic tower, leaving nothing behind. A final warning comes from the glowing eyes of the boss. The demons inside are the most cunning and vicious entities in existence, far worse than anything he's faced. The Rakshasa's voice echoes, urging him to endure the coming trials and conquer every single foe that stands in his way. Si Chen's eyes burn with a fierce red light as he absorbs the command. He is being told to stand at the very peak of this world. A vision of shadowy, monstrous figures fills the red void. His ultimate goal is clear. He must devour every single one of the Demon Kings. The Rakshasa's head disappears completely, turning into a cloud of glowing soul remnants that drift into the dark sky. The last of the boss's essence scatters, leaving behind only the echo of its final words about the price of resolve. Si Chen stands alone in the center of the vast, Red Sea, watching the last purple spark vanish. Only a man with his resolve is worthy of such power. He reaches out and catches the flickering purple flame in his palm. A system loading bar appears as the devouring process begins. A notification flashes. Devouring level up! Si Chen reaches level 10, standing tall as a golden aura erupts around him. He has secured his victory and obtained Rakshasa's underworld bone. He looks down at his hand, his eyes filled with a new, somber purpose. He quietly vows to carry the Rakshasa will forward with him. A system message flashes. Devouring complete. A detailed stat card for Purgatory Rakshasa appears, showing its class as Star Warrior and listing impressive stats for strength, speed, and spirit amidst a backdrop of vibrant pink and purple energy. New skills like Bone Grip Ruin and Triple Gravity Strike materialize in floating text boxes above Si Chen's open hand. He stares at his palm, his resolve hardening as he promises to make his enemies pay in blood. Sunlight streams through the dormitory window, marking the arrival of a high-stakes morning. Si Chen's eyes snap open as a booming voice echoes through the room, demanding everyone get out of bed immediately. He sits up in his bunk, his mind a blur as he tries to process the shift from the chaotic tower back to the quiet dorm. The room is a flurry of activity as students scramble to get ready, while Si Chen remains frozen, questioning if his return is real. He pulls back his shirt to inspect his chest, finding that every brutal wound he sustained in his dream has completely healed. A system window flickers into view, confirming his level has jumped to 10, and showing all the rare class cards he scavenged are still in his possession. His stats have seen an incredible boost, leaving him curious about how the school's official evaluation will rank him now. Suddenly, a sharp call from across the room cuts through his thoughts. It's Xiang Zhuo, his arrogant roommate, who starts mocking him with a predatory grin about some big talk he supposedly gave last night. Ma Long watches from the side, looking visibly nervous as the tension between the roommates begins to spike. Xiang Zhu leans in with a wide-eyed, crazed expression, challenging Si Chen to try and take his spot as the top dog of the dormitory. Si Chen just stares back with a cold, unwavering gaze, his eyes flashing with a hidden power. Later, on the way to the ceremony, Xiang Zhu casually munches on a snack while leading the group down the steps. He reminds the others that even though they're all E-ranks, the hierarchy between them is set in stone. He brags about his mid-E-rank status, looking down on low tiers like they're beneath his notice. A mental comparison chart illustrates the massive gulf in power between each tier, fueling his ego. He scoffs at the possibility of Si Chen improving and runs off with a cocky laugh to find a spot for the test. Ma Long leans in, encouraging Si Chen to aim for D-rank and really give their roommate a shock. Si Chen remains calm, his focus directed ahead as they approach the center of campus. They join the massive crowd of students flowing toward the main evaluation grounds. Xiang Zhu looks back, appearing annoyed that his boasting hasn't drawn more of a reaction. The plaza is packed for the official rank test ceremony, with a giant blue screen announcing the day's events. Near the entrance, a group of students is causing a scene by aggressively shoving others out of their way. These are the lackeys of Gong Cheng, known for being the most notorious bullies in the school. But the moment Xiang Zhu caught a glimpse of this crowd, the big brother of the dorm, tough guy act he'd been putting on instantly shattered. Si Chen walks past them without a word, his expression as cold as ice. The bullies look like they've seen a ghost, sweating profusely as they tremble in his presence. In a shocking display of submission, they drop into deep bows and shout a respectful greeting to their big brother. Xiang Zhu is frozen in place, his mouth hanging open as he tries to process what just happened. Ma Long and the others can only watch in disbelief, as the school's meanest students treat Si Chen like royalty. Si Chen doesn't slow down, his gaze shifting as another voice calls out to him with clear hostility. A student council officer named Jiang Jian steps forward, sporting a smug smile and a loud floral shirt. He mentions an incident from the day before, making it clear he's here to remind Si Chen of his place. The surrounding students start to panic, recognizing the high-ranking officer in their midst. Xiang Zhu and Ma Long whisper among themselves, terrified of Jiang Jian's reputation as a D-rank powerhouse. The air feels heavy with pressure as the officer closes the distance between them. Jiang Jian leans in, claiming his sense of smell is sharp enough to detect a true powerhouse from miles away. He gets right in Si Chen's face, his expression twisting into pure contempt as he continues his taunt. He repeats his boast about smelling true strength, making sure everyone around can hear him. Then he drops the insult, telling Si Chen that all he smells is the sour stench of a permanent bottom feeder. Si Chen doesn't flinch, looking him dead in the eye and asking if he's some kind of dog. The officer's smug mask shatters instantly, his face turning red with explosive rage at the insult. A voice rang out, stopping Jiang Jian in his tracks before the confrontation could escalate any further. Gong Ting, the student council president, steps in with a calm but authoritative presence, stating that he's already looked into the matter. He makes it clear that Gong Cheng was the one at fault, and it's only fair that those who do wrong face the consequences. Gong Ting remains stoic, his amber eyes reflecting a sense of order that silences the surrounding crowd. Si Chen watches the president walk away, his expression unreadable as he prepares for his own turn on the stage. An announcer's voice booms over the plaza, officially kicking off the grading test and calling students to the stage in order. Jiang Jian scoffs as he follows Gong Ting, dismissing Si Chen as a non-threat while they head off to prepare for their own evaluations. High above the plaza, a mysterious figure watches the proceedings with keen interest. Standing in a private observation room, Lingyu sips her tea while the principal, Yuan Long, wonders if she's found anyone worth nodding. Lingyu smiles to herself, sensing that this year's test might turn out to be more interesting than anyone expected. An hour passes and the screen lights up with the next candidate's profile, Xiang Zhuo. Inside the testing chamber, Xiang Zhuo focuses all his energy into his hand, his face strained from the effort. He enters the dimly lit room, his silhouette illuminated by the strange blue glow of the equipment. The air inside crackles with power as he begins the activation process for the evaluation. In the center of the lair hangs the demon heart, a grotesque cable-linked mass designed to absorb and measure an awakener's raw energy. Xiang Zhuo lets out a shout, releasing every ounce of power he possesses toward the pulsating organ. A blinding flash of light erupts as the demon heart drinks in the energy. The cables hum with the sudden influx. The heart glows intensely, processing the input and transmitting the data back to the external monitoring equipment. Overhead, the complex machinery whirs as it converts the raw power into a numerical rank. The large screen displays the first set of results. Xiang Zhuo has officially placed as an E-grade mid-tier. The examiners watch the monitor closely, noticing that the second set of data, the potential measurement, is still being calculated. In the crowd, Ma Long leans forward with bated breath, knowing that the potential score is the real game changer. Potential represents the absolute highest rank an awakener can hope to achieve in their lifetime. Those with high potential are immediately flagged for state attention and special training programs. The screen finalizes the report. Xiang Zhuo is an E-grade mid-tier with a maximum potential of C. He walks out of the gate looking utterly defeated, realizing his hard work over the last 2 years hasn't moved the needle at all. Without skipping a beat, the announcer calls for the next student to step up for their turn. Ma Long rushes over to console his dejected roommate, telling him not to beat himself up too much. He points out that none of them have managed to reach the coveted D grade yet, so they're all in the same boat. A summary of the group's results shows they're all stuck in the E-rank ghetto, with low to mid tiers and mediocre potential. But the somber mood is shattered when a female student's evaluation concludes with a startling result. She emerges from the gate as the crowd erupts. She's reached D-grade low tier with a B-rank potential. The plaza is buzzing with excitement as students realize the first high-tier talent of the year has finally appeared. A short time later, Jiang Jian struts out of the testing portal, basking in the spotlight with an arrogant flourish. The roommates watch in envy, as his result confirms he's a D-grade low tier with an impressive A-rank potential. High above, the examiners are stunned by the sheer number of high-potential students showing up in this year's batch. They agree that the upcoming graduation combat assessment is going to be a bloodbath worth watching. A hush falls over the crowd as the next name is called, and a pair of polished boots steps onto the testing stage. Gong Ting steps into the light, adjusting his collar with a calm confidence that matches his elite reputation. The excitement reaches a fever pitch as students whisper about him being the chosen one and the heir to a powerful guild. Si Chen watches from the crowd, his eyes sharp as he observes the man who is currently considered the school's strongest. Everyone is waiting with held breath to see if the genius president can break the school's historical records today. The demon heart, A grotesque biological eye suspended by cables pulses with a low, rhythmic thrum. Its single eye snaps open, revealing a pale blue iris as it begins to analyze the energy flowing through the system. Gong Ting stands before the heart, his silhouette cast in the cold, flickering light of the testing chamber. Gong Ting stares at his own hand, thinking that he must hold back some of his power to create the biggest sensation later. His golden eyes flash with a sharp light, his ambition to be #1 in school history clear in his gaze. The screen begins to process his results, with the grade and potential columns flickering as they calculate his massive output. The unknown examiner, an older man with a gray mustache, looks on with a sweat-beaded brow as he notices the changing color on the display. The results finalize on the screen. Gong Ting has achieved a D-grade high-tier rank with an unbelievable S-rank potential. A roar of disbelief and excitement erupts from the crowd as this rank flashes brightly, signaling a talent level never seen before. Jiang Jian and other students scream in pure shock, chanting "Long live the president," as they witness what they believe is a historic moment. Ma Long stares at the screen with his jaw dropped, unable to believe that their school has actually produced an S-rank potential user. The examiners are equally stunned, discussing whether they should report this directly to their superiors. The crowd continues to cheer, with many students realizing that Gong Ting will now be considered a national treasure and protected by the state. Gong Ting steps away from the stage, a faint, knowing smirk on his face as he hears the news of his Imperial Guild lineage being mentioned. From the high observation deck, Yuan Long and Ling Yu look down at the bustling plaza, noting the sheer number of talents appearing this year. Yuan Long, the National Awakener University principal, smiles through his gray beard, asking Ling Yu if she'd already known about Gong Ting's potential. Ling Yu responds with a cryptic smile, admitting that while she knew about him, she didn't come here just to see the president. She leans closer to the glass, her gaze fixed on someone else who she finds far more intriguing than the genius president. She watches Si Chen, who stands quietly in the crowd, wondering just how much of a sensation his performance will cause. The announcer's voice echoes once more, calling out the final student for the grading test, Si Chen. Jiang Jian leans in with a smug grin, taunting Si Chen before the test. He tells him he'd better bring some actual honor back to their dorm for once. The taunts keep coming, with Jiang Jian demanding that Si Chen doesn't embarrass them all with another pathetic low E-rank result. He breaks out into a loud, mocking laugh. He's already picturing Si Chen becoming the biggest laughingstock in the whole university. Si Chen stands stoically while his roommates, Xiang Zhu, Xiang Yu, and Ma Long, hang their heads. The surrounding students whisper about them being a bunch of weaklings and a disgrace to the graduation assessment. As Si Chen stepped up to perform the evaluation, Ma Long finally snaps, his face flushed as he shouts back at the bullies. He's certain that Si Chen is about to blow everyone's eyes wide open with his real strength. Ignoring the noise, Si Chen steps into the glowing portal of the testing booth. His name appears on the massive digital scoreboard, waiting for the results to register. Outside, a few students linger, watching the booth with a mix of boredom and faint curiosity. They aren't expecting much from someone with Si Chen's reputation. Deep inside the machine, the testing chamber is a mess of wires and cables, all feeding into a central core. It's a dark, technological abyss that few get to see from the inside. The demon heart core pulses with a strange, organic light, its single eye scanning the new occupant of the booth. It looks more like a living creature than a piece of machinery. Si Chen's eyes glow a piercing red as he prepares for the evaluation. In this era, joining a high-rank guild is the only way for an awakener to secure any kind of future. The graduation combat assessment is the only chance for most students to prove their worth to the guilds. It's a brutal competition where only those at the top get recruited. The test is designed to simulate combat against the nightmares they'll eventually face for real. Only the strongest silhouettes will survive the scrutiny of the recruiters. Candidates are allowed to form squads of up to 10 members. The top-placing squad gets the ultimate reward. Every single member is directly recruited by the nation's elite Imperial Guild. For these students, the test isn't just about a rank. It's about life or death for their careers. The Imperial Guild is the peak of the nation's power structure. Jiang Jian laughs with another student, completely unconcerned with the stakes. He's already bragging about his friend Yan Lin's D-rank like it's a major accomplishment. Gong Ting, the student council president, stands confidently as his 10-man squad assembles. With 9 D-ranks and his brother Gong Cheng on the team, they look absolutely untouchable. To Gong Ting, this day is about more than just himself. It's about scouting the perfect teammates to ensure they crush the upcoming graduation assessment. His teammates crowd around him, showering him with praise and calling him the guaranteed MVP. In this environment, the strongest team inevitably rises to the top. Meanwhile, the weakest team stands off to the side, looking like they've already given up. It's the cold law of survival. The strong huddle together while the weak are cast out and eliminated. Ma Long pushes up his glasses, sweating as he checks the time. He's starting to worry about how long Si Chen has been inside that booth without any movement or data appearing. The scoreboard remains a blank blue void, showing nothing for Si Chen's name. The lack of movement is starting to draw confused murmurs from the remaining students. The rest of the crowd starts to disperse, assuming the test is over. They joke that Si Chen's power must be so pathetic the machine can't even register a rank. Jiang Jian urges Gong Ting to forget about the trash, left inside, and head out for some karaoke. He's convinced there's no point in waiting for someone like Si Chen. Gong Ting closes his eyes and agrees, finally losing interest. He tells Jiang Jian to call the rest of the team together so they can leave. Suddenly, a loud static buzz fills the air as the scoreboard begins to flicker violently. The system seems to be struggling to process a massive influx of data. A bold D slams onto the screen, labeling Si Chen as a high D rank. The unexpected result stops everyone in their tracks. Ma Long and the others stare at the board, their eyes wide and jaws dropped in absolute shock. They weren't expecting this kind of turn around. Ma Long points at the screen and screams in triumph. He knew Si Chen wasn't just some E-rank weakling, and now the proof is right there for everyone to see. Gong Ting and Jiang Jian whip around, their smug expressions replaced by pure confusion. A high D-rank result for a supposed loser shouldn't be possible. Inside the booth, the wires start to spark as the system detects instability in the demon heart. It requests a retest, unable to handle the sudden surge of energy from the candidate. Si Chen watches his level 10 base stats, 150 across the board, pop up on his HUD. Even in his basic, unswitched form, he's already at level 10 and equivalent to a high D rank. He reaches out his hand, initiating the class switching process as blue sparks dance around his fingers. The loading bar on his display quickly fills up. The transformation completes, and Si Chen emerges as the infernal Death King. His appearance shifts, half his face covered by a spectral bone mask as freezing energy radiates from his body. The scoreboard outside glitches again, the digital D fracturing as it tries to keep up with the new power spike coming from inside the booth. The rank jumps upward, settling on a solid C for mid-C rank. The crowd outside can't believe their eyes as the ranking continues to climb. A collective roar of "What?" erupts from the students. They're witnessing a rank jump that defies everything they know about the testing process. Gong Ting stares at the board with a look of genuine disbelief, his composure finally cracking. Next to him, Jiang Jian looks like he's about to have a heart attack. The professors and examiners are sweating, frantically checking their equipment. They've never seen a rank fluctuate this wildly and think the system might be malfunctioning. The demon heart core pulses a deep purple, its eye wide and bulging under the extreme strain. The system screams another warning about instability and potential deviation in the results. Si Chen isn't done yet, nodding that if his weakest class is already a C rank, his other two should be off the charts. He initiates another switch, his silhouette wreathed in dark, jagged energy. The switch is finalized, revealing the Purgatory Rakshasa class. Si Chen's eyes burn a cold blue as he prepares to show the machine the full extent of his true power. A detailed stat card for the Rakshasa blade appears, showing maxed-out potential and terrifying skills like bone grip ruin and gravity manipulation. The machine is about to be pushed past its limits. The central eye of the demon heart pulses violently, veins bulging across its surface as it struggles to contain the energy. It looks like it's about to burst under the pressure of Si Chen's power. A massive swirl of purple energy erupts from the core, spinning into a chaotic vortex that fills the entire testing booth. The machine's containment systems are clearly failing. Dark clouds and lightning crackle around the core as it continues to malfunction. The power output is so high it's creating a literal void right in the middle of the school hall. Outside, the students can only stare upward in terror as the sky within the building seems to darken. Someone screams out, wondering what on earth is happening to the equipment. Ma Long and his roommates are frozen in place, their eyes wide as they witness the celestial-level phenomenon. It's a sight none of them ever expected to see during a simple school evaluation. Ma Long shouts in excitement, convinced that their dorm has finally produced a god-tier monster. Meanwhile, the scoreboard behind them begins to glitch and tear as the ranking system fails. The scoreboard flickers through several ranks before a massive, golden, slams into view. The glitching screen can barely hold the image of the rank S potential. The head examiner loses his mind, screaming into his headset about another S-rank potential appearing. The staff behind him look just as terrified by the data. Gong Ting stares at the display, his usual calm completely shattered. He's never seen the machine react like this to a student before. Red warning boxes pop up over the scoreboard as the system tries to calculate the rank. It's clear that the energy level has already bypassed the machine's upper limits. The rank display breaks apart into a mess of pixels as the system error messages become more frequent. The power surge is completely off the charts. A final notification appears. The potential value is undetectable. The machine has officially exceeded its maximum load and can no longer process the test. Jiang Jian let out a horrified scream as the system entered a state of total collapse. His eyes were practically bulging out of his head from the sheer panic. With a deafening roar, the testing booth explodes in a pillar of fire and smoke. The blast sends shockwaves through the hall, throwing everyone back. The examiners scramble through the smoke, shouting for everyone to get back while they try to find Si Chen. They're terrified that the student might have been caught in the explosion. Lightning continued to arc across the space around the destroyed machinery. The head examiner rushed headlong into the wreckage to search for Si Chen, hoping that the student was still all right. The head examiner stares into the center of the machine, his face pale as he realizes what's happened. He can't believe his eyes as he checks the condition of the core. The demon heart has become a shriveled, gray husk, completely drained of life and energy. It looks more like a piece of burnt coal than a high-tech core. While the examiners are preoccupied with the wreckage, Si Chen quietly walks out from the smoke. He looks entirely unharmed, his expression as calm as ever. He glances back, thinking to himself that he might have pushed a bit too hard and accidentally choked the machine to death. But he doesn't seem to regret it one bit. A system message confirms that the devouring is complete. He's obtained the exquisite demon heart, a rank item that lets him perceive the power ranks of everything within a 100-meter radius. The school hall is still a mess of sparks and debris as the staff try to regain control. Si Chen stands in the middle of it all, hidden by the shadows. He activates the newly acquired item, and his left eye begins to glow with a brilliant teal light. He's ready to test out his new vision on the crowd. Green hexagons appear over the heads of the students, labeling almost everyone as high E rank. Si Chen notes how convenient it is to finally see the true strength of those around him. He scans the room, his glowing eyes shifting from person to person. He's looking for anyone who might actually be a threat in the upcoming assessment. His gaze lands on Gong Ting, and a pink hexagon reveals his real strength, mid-C rank. Si Chen scoffs, thinking that even the student council president's hidden power is mediocre at best. The examiners announce that due to the sudden death of the demon heart, all testing must be suspended for the day. They tell the remaining students to return tomorrow when a new device is ready. The staff begins ushering everyone out of the building. They explain that Si Chen's earlier rank jump was likely just a system error caused by the machine's impending failure. Ma Long and the other roommates swarm Si Chen, Chibe style, as they celebrate his survival. Si Chen just looks tired and tells them he wants to go back to the dorm. Jiang Jian watches them from behind, his face tight with anger. He's convinced that there's no way a loser like Si Chen could have actually reached C rank or S rank potential. Jiang Jian stomps over and starts screaming in Si Chen's face. He demands to know where his sense of responsibility is and how he plans to compensate them for the wasted time. Si Chen's hand begins to crackle with electricity as he listens to the shouting. He's clearly losing his patience with the bully's constant nagging. He looks at Jiang Jian with cold, glowing eyes, seriously considering if he should just cripple the guy right then and there. The tension between them is thick enough to cut. Suddenly, Gong Ting's voice cuts through the noise, telling Jiang Jian to stand down. He warns his teammate not to be so disrespectful to someone who is clearly a valuable peer. Jiang Jian is taken aback as Gong Ting walks right past him. The rest of the students watch in silence as the president approaches the loser he was just mocking. Gong Ting smiles warmly and extends his hand towards Si Chen. He invites him to join his squad so they can tackle the graduation combat assessment together. Gong Ting continues his pitch, promising that with Si Chen on the team, the highest score in school history will belong to them. He seems very confident in his choice. The surrounding students are in absolute shock. They can't believe the student council president is personally inviting Si Chen to join his elite team after such a bizarre test. Jiang Jian is fuming, realizing that if Si Chen joins the squad, one of the current members, likely himself, will have to be kicked out. He looks like he's about to explode from the unfairness of it all. Jiang Jian clenches his teeth, knowing that joining Gong Ting's team basically guarantees a first-place finish in the assessment. He can't stand the thought of Si Chen taking that spot from him. Si Chen stares back at Gong Ting with an unreadable expression. He doesn't look particularly impressed by the offer or the prestige that comes with it. Despite his rage, Jiang Jian realizes he has to give face to Gong Ting and can't openly object. He reluctantly backs off, even though he's clearly planning something in the back of his mind. Jiang Jian forces a pained smile, his face twitching as he tries to hide his growing irritation. He welcomes Si Chen to the team with a hollow laugh, though his eyes tell a completely different story. Si Chen doesn't even slow down, throwing a blunt refusal over his shoulder without looking back. Gong Ting and the others watch in silence as he makes it clear he has no intention of joining them. Jiang Jian's expression snaps into one of pure, unadulterated shock. He can't believe a student like Si Chen just walked away from an invitation from the student council president. Gong Ting's eyes narrow, the golden light in them sharpening as he watches Si Chen's retreating figure. He remains perfectly still, absorbing the weight of the public rejection. Jiang Jian erupts, pointing a finger at Si Chen and yelling about the prestige of their #1 ranked team. Si Chen continues to walk away, stating simply that the team's strength has absolutely nothing to do with him. Si Chen's profile is cast in shadow, one eye glowing with a faint, dangerous red light. He tells them they are far too noisy and orders them not to bother him from this point on. Jiang Jian is literally steaming with rage, his face turning a deep shade of red as he clenches his teeth. He watches Si Chen leave, his body trembling with the urge to strike back. The surrounding students are abuzz with whispers, shocked by the sheer audacity of someone refusing Gong Ting. They look at each other in disbelief, wondering where Si Chen found the guts to pull such a move. Si Chen walks away with a steady, confident stride, ignoring the eyes of the crowd. The onlookers assume he must be aiming for the first-place spot entirely on his own, emboldened by his recent test results. Ma Long and his roommates can't help but laugh at the situation, finding the arrogant team's defeat hilarious. They mock the way the elites were acting so high and mighty just moments ago. Gong Ting maintains his composure, telling his team it's okay, and that Si Chen clearly has his own way of doing things. He looks over his shoulder at Jiang Jian, who is still reeling from the embarrassment. A high-angle shot shows the students dispersing across the school grounds under the bright afternoon sun. The tension of the evaluation has finally broken, but the rivalry is only just beginning. An elderly examiner with a prominent scar across his eye size, disappointed that the school's 2 top prospects won't be teaming up. He had been looking forward to seeing a new history-making record set this year. Lingyu stood beside him, a cryptic smile playing on her lips as she watched the drama unfold. She seemed to find the entire conflict far more interesting than a simple partnership would have been. A close-up reveals Lingyu's sharp, calculating gaze as she analyzes the situation. She knows that for someone with a background like Gong Ting's, this public refusal is nothing short of a declaration of war. Gong Ting's face is a mask of cool indifference, but his sharp features suggest a mind that is always working. He knows he isn't someone who can be easily dismissed or dealt with. Jiang Jian continues to grumble in the background, insisting that Si Chen only got lucky because of a machine error. He refuses to believe that the loser has actually reached C-grade level strength. Gong Ting's eyes flash with a cold, predatory light as he considers the competition. He is determined to maintain his first-place position, no matter how small the chance of someone surpassing him might be. Jiang Jian leans in close, his face distorted by a wicked grin as he whispers to Gong Ting. He offers to hunt Si Chen down and teach him a lesson on the president's behalf, citing their combat experience in demon lairs. Gong Ting looks at him with a tired, disdainful expression, asking if Jiang Jian truly thinks he is such a petty person. Jiang Jian immediately recoils, stuttering out an apology as he realizes he overstepped. Gong Ting turns his back on the group, stating that he's no longer in the mood for their planned karaoke outing. He walks away, leaving the rest of the team to handle their own arrangements for the day. A close-up of Gong Ting's eye shows a piercing yellow glow as he makes his final stance clear. He declares that whatever Si Chen does from now on is irrelevant and has nothing to do with him. Jiang Jian stands frozen, his mouth slightly agape as he watches his leader walk away. He feels the weight of the rejection, but his mind is already turning toward a different path. The shadow returns to Jiang Jian's face as a wide, sinister smile spreads across his lips. He whispers to himself that he understands, clearly interpreting Gong Ting's words as a green light for his own revenge. 10 minutes later, a white-haired student finds Jiang Jian sitting on a set of stairs outside. He reports that Si Chen has already left the school premises. The white-haired underling confirms that he overheard Si Chen saying he was going home for a bit. He adds that Si Chen didn't even stop to eat before heading out. Jiang Jian crushed an empty soda can under his boot with a satisfying crunch. He laughed to himself, feeling as though the heavens themselves were granting him a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Jiang Jian's eyes bulge with a manic intensity as his grin widens further. He's thrilled by the fact that Si Chen is now outside the protection of the school grounds. Si Chen walks calmly with earbuds in, unaware of the eyes on him, or perhaps simply indifferent. He reflects that being away from the school makes it much more convenient to deal with pests ruthlessly. He strolls along a chain-link fence, the urban landscape of the city stretching out around him. He seems focused on a goal far beyond the petty squabbles of the academy. A flashback reveals Si Chen's memories of his past life, where a peak guild team was conquering a demon lair in Saint He country. The ground is cracked, and the atmosphere is heavy with dark energy. The silhouette of the guild team is shown entering a massive, cavernous demon lair. Inside, they encountered a powerful entity that no one had ever seen before. A giant, swirling pink eye of pure malevolence fills the frame, pulsating with a terrifying power. This is the demon known as Wrath, one of the greatest threats from Si Chen's previous existence. Massive, multi-eyed tentacles erupt from the ground, effortlessly tearing the elite guild team apart. It was a complete annihilation, with the demon eventually descending upon the human world to wreak havoc. Si Chen considers the limited information he currently possesses about Wrath's location and arrival. He knows he must act quickly if he wants to change the future. Standing alone in the present, Si Chen begins formulating a plan to locate the demon lair early. To start this plan, he realizes he first needs to secure a specific resource. Si Chen arrives at a large, classical-style building with a gold sign reading Mithril Monster Exchange. He acknowledges that his first priority is to acquire a large sum of money. He walks through the grand entrance, nodding that this exchange will eventually become the largest material hub in the country. For now, it's just a place for him to offload his loot. The interior is filled with racks of medieval-style weapons, shields, and armor pieces for sale. Si Chen walks toward the counter, looking out of place in his school uniform. He places several sharp, curved monster claws and teeth onto the padded counter. These are the drops he managed to scavenge, and they are his ticket to quick cash. The appraiser, a man in a bow tie and glasses, stares at one of the claws through his lens in absolute shock. He looks up at the student, demanding to know where such a high-quality item came from. Si Chen stands calmly at the counter, explaining simply that the items were dropped by a monster. The appraiser and his assistant exchange confused glances, unable to believe a student would possess such rare materials. Little Li, the pink-haired assistant, identifies the item as a drop from an E-grade cloud-type monster. She recognizes the material as Sangson's Fang, a common but useful monster part. The appraiser waves his hand dismissively while lecturing Little Li on the uses of the Fang. He explains it can be used for scepters or ground into powder, but he clearly thinks it's beneath his expertise. He continues his haughty lecture, adjusting his red bow tie with a gloved hand. He boasts about the exchange's VIP system and how he usually only handles high-grade goods of D-grade and above. A close-up shows the appraiser's eyes narrowing behind his glasses as he laments the lack of high-grade customers recently. He's obsessed with his promotion to supervisor and sees Si Chen as a waste of time. Si Chen looked down at his phone with a look of pure boredom, completely ignoring the appraiser's posturing, even as the man continued to stare at him and lament his own bad luck for constantly running into troublesome pests who offered zero benefit to his promotion plans. The appraiser turns his back and walks away, carelessly tossing the responsibility of finishing the transaction to Little Li. He gives her a backhanded encouragement, telling her he has high hopes for her while he ducks out of the minor task. Little Li leans over the counter and hands Si Chen a sleek black bag with Mithril Monster Exchange, printed in gold. She politely hands over the payment and asks if there's anything else he needs assistance with. Si Chen stares at the digital display on his phone, showing a balance of $18,000 for 18 fangs. He knows this sum is exactly what he needs to solve his immediate rent problems. He raises his hand, and a surge of pinkish-white digital energy begins to gather around his palm. He prepares to bring out his real reason for visiting the exchange today. With a sharp sound, Si Chen summons a massive, jagged greatsword with a purple glowing blade that hums with power. He asks Little Lee to take a look at this next item, catching her completely off guard. Little Lee's eyes go wide, and her jaw drops as the sheer weight and aura of the weapon fill the room. She can barely find the words to describe the intimidating purple blade. A close-up of the sword's guard reveals intricate, tooth-like spikes and a dark, organic texture. Little Lee stammers that she's never seen anything like it, guessing it must be at least B grade, or maybe even A grade. The appraiser rushes back, sweat beads forming on his forehead as he yells at Little Lee for even dreaming of an A-grade weapon. He insists that such rare items are worth millions, and that he hasn't seen one in all his years of working there. A tall man with short blue hair and glasses appears from behind, interrupting the appraiser with a calm, authoritative voice. He agrees that the weapon isn't B grade or A grade, but for a very different reason. The appraiser lets out a loud, mocking laugh, feeling vindicated by the newcomer's arrival. He assumes the boss is just going to confirm that Si Chen is bringing out junk. Qingzhai adjusts his glasses, his sharp gaze fixed on the greatsword with professional intensity. He identifies the weapon as S-grade equipment, forged from materials found only in the Purgatory lands. The appraiser's face turns pale and his eyes bulge out of his head as the reality of the situation hits him. Little Lee covers her mouth in shock as the word S-grade echoes through the room. A close-up shows Qingzhai's hand firmly grasping Si Chen's in a formal and respectful handshake. The power dynamic in the room has shifted instantly. Qingzhai breaks into a professional, welcoming smile as he greets Si Chen as a distinguished guest. The appraiser can only watch from the background with a look of utter defeat and disbelief. He gestures toward a back hallway, inviting Si Chen to follow him to a private VIP room for a more serious discussion. Little Lee struggles to carry the massive purple greatsword behind them as they move through the store. Si Chen watches the blue-haired man with a faint, knowing smirk playing on his lips. He thinks to himself that the person he was waiting for has finally shown his face. A focused profile of Qingzhai shows a man of calm intelligence and high status within the Mithril Guild. He is the key to the next stage of Si Chen's plan to prepare for the coming apocalypse. Steam rises from a freshly poured cup of tea. Inside the luxurious private lounge of the Mithril Exchange, Qingzhai sits across from the young man. He leans forward, eyeing the massive, jagged sword on the table as he asks for the price. Si Chen doesn't blink, stating a price of exactly 1 million. The manager freezes, staring at him in utter disbelief. He points at the weapon, explaining that even a rank gear goes for millions, while an S-rank like this could fetch tens of millions on the open market. Si Chen clarifies his intent. He's not selling, he's using the blade as collateral for a 1-month loan. Qingzhai adjusts his glasses, wondering if this is the kind of logic a typical university student would have. He realizes the kid has no intention of parting with the sword permanently, and likely plans to wield it himself later. Si Chen calmly takes a sip of his tea, while the manager tries to figure out if he's a runaway rich kid or a genius hiding his true power. Either way, it's clear to him that the person sitting on his couch is anything but ordinary. Si Chen sets his cup down, offering to pay a 10% interest rate if the loan carries into a second month. Sensing a massive opportunity, Qingzhai dismisses his assistant, Zio Li, to discuss terms in private. He sits back, his gaze sharpening as he begins to piece the puzzle together. He calls out Si Chen's school as the National Awakener University, nodding that the seniors are right on the verge of graduation. He mentions the annual examination scheduled for exactly 1 month from now, where the first-place prize is a cool million. Everything lines up perfectly with the repayment date and amount Si Chen requested. A small smirk plays on his lips as he leans in. He asks if Si Chen is so confident he'll take the top spot that he's willing to bet an S-rank weapon on it. If that's the case, he questions why someone would go to such risky lengths just to get the money a few weeks early. To him, it screams of desperation, as if this loan is a necessary last resort for something urgent. He pauses, his expression turning calculating. Instead of playing hardball, he offers a better deal. 1.5 million in cash right now, with 0 interest for the first month. He stands and extends his hand, framing it as an investment in a new friendship. Si Chen looks back at him, weighing the offer. Qingzhai promises to keep their transaction completely confidential. He asks that the exchange be his first stop for any future trading needs, promising the best deals in the business. Si Chen watches him with a knowing look, well aware that this man is destined to turn the Mithril Exchange into a global empire. They seal the deal with a handshake, Si Chen realizing that brute strength alone won't be enough to take down his ultimate target. To succeed this time, he'll need to start surrounding himself with powerful and trustworthy allies. A glowing magic circle hums to life as the contract is finalized. The transfer goes through instantly, and Si Chen checks his phone to see the 1.5 million hit his account. Before he leaves, the manager asks a practical question. What will he use for the exam if his primary weapon is locked in their vault? He offers to let him borrow some high-rank equipment from their current stock, even if they're out of S-rank items. Si Chen waves him off with a simple "no need" and raises his hand. To the manager's horror, Si Chen summons another S-rank sword, identical to the one he just handed over. The staff members are left speechless, their faces twisting in shock as they realize the desperate kid is actually carrying around multiple S-rank treasures. Si Chen heads for the exit, leaving the employees bowing in deep respect while they process what just happened. Qingzhai is practically glowing with excitement, promoting Xiao Li to supervisor on the spot for her part in bringing in such a high-profile client. Outside, Si Chen looks out at the city, his mind already on the next phase. With his immediate financial needs met, he decides there's something else he needs to take care of. He flags down a taxi and heads across town. He arrives at the long-distance bus terminal, ready to reunite with his family. Si Chen stands alone, his gaze heavy with the weight of memories from a life he once lost. He remembers a time when things weren't this easy, and his family was constantly pushed to the brink. In that past life, his graduation meant nothing because he hadn't awakened any powers, leaving him rejected by every guild he applied to. He spent his days racing against the clock as a delivery driver, sweating through odd jobs just to scrape together enough for the monthly rent. Money was a constant source of stress, with his bank account balance often dipping into the low triple digits. He and Si Yun lived out of boxes in a cramped room, barely surviving. While he spiraled into despair over their lack of funds, his sister would always try to stay positive, claiming she had found tutoring work to help out. She was brilliant enough to get an acceptance letter from the International Central Art Institute, a dream come true for any aspiring artist. But instead of celebrating, she stared at the paper with a hollow expression before beginning to tear it into pieces. The scraps of her future fluttered to the floor as she lied, saying the school was too far away and she'd rather stay close to her brother. She was so terrified of becoming a financial burden that she simply threw away her lifelong dream to keep the family afloat. Back in the present, Si Chen checks his phone outside the bus terminal, wondering why his sister is taking so long to arrive. A familiar voice cuts through the crowd, calling out to him from across the pavement. Si Yun comes running toward him, her sneakers slapping against the asphalt as she navigates the traffic. She immediately starts lecturing him for waiting at the entrance instead of the exit. Si Chen stands frozen, his heart racing. From his perspective, it has been 7 agonizing years since he last saw her alive and well. Si Yun stops in front of him with her bright yellow suitcase, completely unaware of the turmoil inside her brother, as she asks him to help with her bags. When he doesn't move, she waves a hand in front of his face, teasing him for standing there like a complete dummy. Without a word, Si Chen pulls her into a sudden bone-crushing hug, burying his face in her shoulder. His sister is caught completely off guard, her eyes widening in confusion at the uncharacteristic show of affection. For Si Chen, the feel of her presence is the greatest relief he's ever known, and a small, genuine smile finally breaks across his face. He holds on tight, silent as he cherishes a moment he thought would never happen again. The sentimentality is short-lived as Si Yun starts to panic, struggling against his grip and accusing him of trying to choke her to death. She playfully pokes his side to get him to back off, joking that he must have been rejected by a girl to be acting this weird lately. Then she tossed the luggage to him to fulfill his duties as an older brother and urged them both to head home quickly. They start walking away from the station together, Si Yun chattering away about how crazy the ride to her exam was. Si Chen listens to her voice, his expression softening as they navigate the busy streets. Looking at her happy face, he makes a silent, unwavering vow. This time around, he will never let her suffer or sacrifice her dreams ever again. Meanwhile, in a narrow, dimly lit alleyway, a group of shadowy figures waits in silence. One man stands at the center, watching the path from above. The leader, wearing a loud Hawaiian shirt, confirms that this is the exact route Si Chen takes to get home every day. He orders his thugs to take their positions, telling them to jump the kid the moment he shows his face. A wicked, jagged grin spreads across his face as he takes a drag from his cigarette. He's determined to make sure Si Chen learns exactly what happens to those who dare to mess with him. A group of thugs is huddling in a dark alley, planning a surprise. One of them looks a bit nervous, worried that things might get a little out of hand. Jiang Jian, the guy in the loud floral shirt, isn't worried at all. He's itching to teach Si Chen a lesson for acting like he's actually worth something. He can't stop thinking about the time Si Chen looked him dead in the eye and told him to stop being so loud and to stay away. That kind of disrespect doesn't go unpunished. The rest of the gang is ready for blood, bats in hand. Their goal is simple: wreck him so badly he won't even be able to make it to his graduation exam in 2 weeks. Jiang Jian flexes his status as a D-rank cloud assassin. He's convinced that some E-rank nobody is about to have the worst night of his life. Meanwhile, Si Chen is just taking a peaceful stroll with his little sister, Si Yun. They look like any other pair of siblings heading home after a long day. Si Yun's been eyeing him over her drink the whole time. She can tell something's different about him and asks if he's just stressing over the upcoming exams. She teases him, calling him a simpleton who usually doesn't let his emotions get the better of him. She even starts quoting his own advice back at him, telling him to pull himself together because life's a long journey with plenty of chances. As they walk, a light song starts playing. Si Chen's just vibing while his sister remains skeptical of his quiet mood. He smiles to himself, impressed by how perceptive she is. She still has no idea he's actually awakened and that their days of being broke are long gone. He promises her he's okay, but she's not buying it. She figures it's just his male pride talking. Si Yun keeps pouting, teasing him about getting older and building up emotional walls. From the shadows of the nearby buildings, a dark figure watches their every move. The thugs spot them from the darkness. They notice Si Chen isn't alone and realize he's brought a girl along. For them, this is the perfect setup. A secluded alley with 0 cameras, it's their lucky day. Si Chen stops in his tracks. He catches a familiar scent and realizes it's the guys from the student council. He's surprised they have the nerve to actually show up here. He senses them lurking just ahead. The gang steps out, fully intending to surround the two of them. Si Chen doesn't miss a beat. He reaches into his pocket and pops open his earbud case. He gently reaches over and places one of the earbuds into Si Yun's ear. He tells her he's been listening to this song on repeat and wants her to hear it too. She's confused but goes along with it. She closes her eyes, deciding to just enjoy the music and maybe learn a little more about what her brother likes. Si Chen looks on, his expression shifting as he prepares to deal with the unwanted guests. With his sister's world now filled with music, Si Chen's eyes flare with a dangerous blue light. It's time to go to work. The entire gang shows their faces, their ranks hovering above their heads. Jiang Jian leads the charge as a D-rank, supported by a handful of E-ranks. Si Yun is completely oblivious, getting lost in the lyrics as she sways to the beat. The thugs charge in, weapons raised, completely unaware of what they're walking into. A flash of the past hits him, back to the year 2160, when he lost the last member of his family. He spent 7 years trying to get back to this moment. He's finally reunited with his family, and he is absolutely livid that these punks would dare to try and ruin it. Lightning crackles across his face. The thugs keep coming, weapons ready to strike, but they're way out of their league. Si Chen slams the first guy into the ground with enough force to crater the pavement. It's an absolute beatdown from the very first second. One goon goes flying, his weapon spinning uselessly out of his hand as the impact ripples through the alley. Si Yun is still in her own little world, peacefully listening to the music while the chaos unfolds just a few feet away. Si Chen's fist glows with a blinding energy as he prepares his next move. These guys never stood a chance. The other thugs can only watch in absolute terror as their companions are dismantled one by one. One of them lets out a panicked cry. It's a masterclass in violence. Si Chen moves like a ghost, landing heavy blows that sound like thunder against their bones. He sends them flying into the air, tossing them aside like they're nothing but trash. The speed and power he's showing is terrifying. Another punch connects with a sickening thud, the sheer force behind it sending a shockwave through the alleyway. He reaches out and grabs one of the goons by the arm, his grip like a steel vise. There's no escaping this. With a brutal twist, he snaps the guy's arm. The sound of bone breaking echoes through the alley as a sharp crack rings out. The thug lets out a blood-curdling scream of agony, his face twisted in pure pain. But for Si Yun, everything is still perfectly silent. The thug barely has time to scream, as his arm is crushed by a single, powerful move. A massive shockwave ripples through the alley. Si Chen is a blur of movement, sending the gang members flying while a song about protecting a fragile star plays in his sister's ears. Jiang Jian watches in total shock, sweat dripping down his face. He can't wrap his head around how a supposed E-rank student is doing this. Si Chen's eyes glow with an intense light as he lunges forward again. The sound of bones cracking fills the narrow space. He lands another brutal punch, sending a thug spiraling backwards. He follows up with a heavy strike that levels another attacker instantly. Desperate and terrified, Jiang Jian pulls out a combat knife. He screams at the top of his lungs, trying to convince himself that as a top cloud-type assassin, he still has a chance. He lunges at Si Chen with the blade, swearing and lashing out in a blind panic. Si Chen delivered a final, decisive strike right to the loudmouth's face. The knife spun through the air, splattered with Jiang Jian's blood. A powerful shockwave erupted, tossing the loudmouth aside like a ragdoll. Not stopping there, Si Chen continued to charge forward with blinding speed, leaving a trail of energy in his wake. He followed up with a vicious uppercut, a single blow that sent his teeth flying and left his mouth a bloody mess. A close-up of the uppercut sends Jiang Jian flipping backward, as his front teeth bid a mass farewell to their owner. This guy really hit the jackpot by drawing the full fury of the god-tier protagonist, all for the crime of daring to lay a hand on the boss's family. A wide shot shows the body tumbling away, kicking up a thick cloud of dust in its wake. His body slammed straight into the wall, looking like a literal explosion had gone off. He tried to open his eyes, only to find Si Chen looming right over him, his eyes burning with a menacing red light. He stands over Jiang Jian, holding the very knife the thug tried to use on him. He reminds him that he was warned to never bother him again. His gaze is cold, as he asks what part of that warning was so hard to understand. Chap 11, he looms in the darkness, a silhouette of pure intimidation. He repeats the question, letting the silence between them grow heavy. The intensity in his eyes doesn't waver for a second. Jiang Jian lies in a pool of his own blood, his ribs shattered and his legs completely numb. He grovels and apologizes, finally realizing that Si Chen's D-rank assessment was nothing but a lie. Si Chen presses the blade against Jiang Jian's neck and tells him to shut up unless he wants to die. Jiang Jian looks at those eyes and knows they aren't lying. This guy really is prepared to kill him. A shadowy, demonic figure seems to rise behind Si Chen. Jiang Jian can't help but wonder what kind of life a student could have led to develop such intense killing intent. Si Chen leans in close, making sure Jiang Jian catches every word he's about to say. He looks over at the scattered bodies in the alley. He tells them they can all rot, but if they ever try to harm his sister, things will get much worse. He draws the knife across Jiang Jian's cheek and promises that if they even show up near her, he'll hunt them down one by one. He finishes with a final chilling promise. He'll make every single one of them disappear permanently. Jiang Jian can only nod frantically as the blade nicks his skin, tears streaming down his face. Si Chen turns his back on the broken gang and walks away as the song in Si Yun's ears comes to an end. Si Yun is still swaying to the music, but the lyrics about a lonely sky are hitting her harder than she expected. The song talks about shadows disappearing at dawn, mirroring the melancholy she feels. Tears start to run down her cheeks. She doesn't understand why a simple song is making her feel so much grief. Suddenly, she thought about how much he had changed in just a few days, as if he were someone who had lived through an entire lifetime of hardships. It hurts her to think he could feel so lonely when she's been by his side this whole time. She calls out to him, her voice breaking as she asks if he's taking a joke too far. Si Chen has returned. His cold expression vanishes in an instant. He turns back to her with a warm smile and holds out a small red box. He calls her Yunny and offers her the gift, his eyes showing none of the killer intent from moments before. She's stunned to find a high-end magic holographic pen inside. It's the latest model, exactly what she's been wanting. Si Yun stares at the high-end pen, her eyes wide with shock at the massive price tag. Si Chen leans back comfortably, a faint smile playing on his lips as he watches her stunned reaction. She clutches the pen, her gaze dropping as a mix of emotions crosses her face. Behind his calm mask, Si Chen reflects on the failures of his previous life, where he couldn't protect her or her aspirations. His hand, hidden behind his back and stained with the blood of the men he just crushed, clenches into a tight fist. He is determined that this life will have a different ending. The scene shifts back to the dark alley, where the broken bodies of the thugs lie scattered on the ground. Despite the violence he just committed, Si Chen's thoughts are purely on his vow to safeguard his sister's future. Si Yun carefully touches the tip of the pen to the open air. A vibrant, glowing holographic fish materializes and begins to swim through the air. The sight fills her with wonder, momentarily wiping away the stress of their difficult lives. Back in their small apartment, Si Chen eats a bowl of noodles with obvious enjoyment. He praises her cooking, declaring that her fried egg noodles are second to none. Si Yun looks down at the expensive pen, her mind returning to their financial reality. She's still worried about how they'll manage the basic costs of living after such a big purchase. Si Chen matter-of-factly informs her that he's already paid the entire year's rent. Si Yun stands in stunned silence, her eyes practically popping out of her head. He laughs awkwardly and rubs his neck, spinning a tale about a successful business venture he started with a friend. Si Yun isn't fooled for a second, her expression turning flat as she tells him he's an awful liar. She folds her arms and stares him down, her suspicion only growing. She finds the whole situation incredibly fishy and dislikes that he's hiding things from her. She studies his face, looking for any hint of what he's really been up to. However, seeing the pure, happy smile on his face makes her soften. She realizes it's been a very long time since she's seen him look this genuinely at peace. She places a gentle hand on his shoulder, the tension between them easing. She tells him that no matter what happens, he needs to make sure he doesn't push himself too hard. Si Chen meets her gaze with a calm, steady gaze, and a simple acknowledgement. The setting changes to a massive, dimly lit aquarium where various fish glide through the water. A report notes that Jiang Jian has suffered catastrophic injuries, with over 60% of his bones fractured. A lone figure stands before the towering glass wall, silhouetted against the blue light. The man observes that the extent of the damage is so severe that medical professionals won't be able to fully heal him within a month. Gong Ting watches the fish, his face cold as he thinks about Jiang Jian's stupid decision to challenge someone as dangerous as Si Chen. A woman in a green dress sits nearby, listening as Gong Ting concludes that Jiang Jian will be forced to miss the graduation exam. He speaks with total indifference, stating that his team will be better off without any deadweights dragging them down. The sound of footsteps signals the arrival of another person in the quiet room. Gong Xuan, the National Awakener University's Director of Career Services, enters the scene. He's already well acquainted with the trouble Si Chen seems to cause. Fish drift through the coral. As the director reveals, he's confirmed the results of the latest internal ranking assessment. Gong Xuan leans closer to the glass, his eyes sharp behind his glasses. He informs Gong Ting that Si Chen is officially a C rank, making him the only student in the entire school with a higher rank. Gong Ting's expression hardens, a spark of intense rivalry flaring in his eyes at the news. Gong Xuan mentions that the Alliance's vice-chairman will be attending the graduation examination to personally inspect the students. He warns Gong Ting to make sure no one else takes the spotlight away from him. He turns his gaze toward the woman sitting quietly in the back of the room. He asked Ling Yu if she would be willing to fill the vacancy in Gong Ting's squad left by the injured Jiang Jian. Instead of answering, she simply gave a calm, confident smile. Gong Ting dismisses the director's warnings, telling him he's making a mountain out of a molehill. His eyes flare with a sharp green light as he asks if the director truly believes he was using his full power during the assessment. Inside the aquarium, a shark lunges forward and swallows a small fish whole. Gong Ting promises that when the combat examination arrives, everyone will finally see who the strongest truly is. He stares ahead, his predatory gaze fixed on some distant goal. The clock strikes 11:00 p.m. at the men's dormitory. Si Chen is in the middle of a hot shower, steam rising from his skin after completing a grueling 100-kilometer run with weights. He stands under the spray, his mind focused and clear. Now that his immediate financial needs are met, he's ready to move forward with the next phase of his plan after graduation. His target is set on the 1 million yuan prize money offered at the upcoming graduation examination. It's the only way he can fulfill his side of the bargain and repay the debt he owes to the mysterious Qing Zhai. He lies back on his bed, exhausted but determined, nodding that there's less than a month remaining before the exam begins. He closes his eyes and prepares for sleep, knowing he still needs to gain a few more levels before he's truly ready. A system interface flickers into life in the darkness. The loading bar reaches completion, and a message appears announcing that the Glutton System has been initiated. Under a blood-red sky, a gargantuan, twisted tower of black stone reaches toward the clouds. A solitary figure stands at its base, dwarfed by the scale of the structure as a powerful wind whistles through the jagged landscape. Si Chen begins his ascent up the weathered stone steps, a tiny figure moving toward the base of the colossal, dark monolith. The scale of the structure is overwhelming, its jagged peak disappearing into the blood-red clouds above. Recalling what happened during the assessment, he confirmed that even his weakest class, Gravehound King, was ranked at mid-tier C rank. However, the system is unable to display the official rank for his strongest class, Abyssal Fiend. A bright red warning box appears, stating that the potential rank value far exceeds the maximum system bounds. While the Abyssal Fiend is at least S rank, Si Chen is aware that he currently lacks the strength to utilize its full potential. He remains uncertain about the true ceiling of this class's power. 2 more class cards sit next to his active ones, but they are completely obscured by shadow and question marks. Their names and ranks remain a total mystery for now. A glowing golden key with a large red gem, identified as the SSS-Rank Time Rift key, floats above his hand. It is the only tool capable of unlocking the ancient gates of the Tower of Darkness. He releases the key, letting it hang in the air as it begins to resonate with the massive gateway. He is ready to put his abilities to the test. The space between the pillars erupts into a violent, swirling vortex of purple energy that shakes the entire landscape. He stares into the rift, questioning what kind of world awaits him on the other side. The violet light consumes him completely, as he is pulled into the heart of the tower with a sharp rush of wind. Si Chen's eyes burn with a brilliant red light as he takes in the sight of his new surroundings. He stares forward in shock, his breath hitching as he recognizes the place he has been transported to. We open in a desolate realm known as the Fallen Star Wastes, where a lone figure stands beneath a vast, purple galaxy. Suddenly, Si Chen is jolted by a strange sensation, his eyes widening in confusion. An immense force slams down on him, forcing him to his knees with a pained grunt. His eyes glow red as he fights against the crushing weight, realizing the gravity here is insanely exaggerated. A system note confirms the surface gravity is 10 times that of Earth's. He quickly assesses the situation. The door I came in through has vanished. It seems I must eliminate this floor's boss to open it again. Forced to sit and catch his breath, Si Chen calculates his chances. In this environment, I can unleash 30% of my strength at most. I need to adapt to this place as quickly as possible. Just as he thinks this, a colossal glowing foot descends from the sky, shaking the very ground he sits on. The boss of this floor reveals itself, a B-rank star warrior known as the Phantom Lion. Realizing he's outmatched, Si Chen activates a system command. Loading, switching class. As he pants for breath, golden lightning begins to crackle violently around his hand. A notification declares the process finished. The class switch is complete, designating him as a level 10 Lightning Assassin. Now overflowing with power, Si Chen's stats have been boosted significantly. He glares at the beast and says, "So the enemy of this floor is you." Holding a newly formed lightning dagger, Si Chen prepares to face the pouncing Phantom Lion. The beast lunges with ferocious speed, but Si Chen, enhanced by his new class, narrowly dodges the attack. He grits his teeth trying to counterattack, but the intense gravity is still a major issue. My body feels so heavy. He pushes through the pressure, thinking, I must end this quickly. He thrusts his dagger at the lion's chest, but the attack misses its vital point, failing to paralyze the beast. His eyes widen in disbelief. I missed. While the lion lands gracefully, Si Chen realizes the flaw in his plan. The high gravity has severely impacted my speed and attack precision. The assassin class has lost all its advantages. The Phantom Lion roars, completely unfazed by the environment. Si Chen watches in frustration, thinking, but this guy is moving with ease. As the monster's cosmic energy flares for another attack, Si Chen understands the massive power gap. Is this the monster strength level inside the Purgatory Magic Tower? It was clear his current class wasn't going to cut it. Realizing his mistake, Si Chen doesn't hesitate. He initiates another class switch, and the system confirms, class switch complete. Surrounded by a new, violent aura of pink and blue energy, his eyes glow with power. He declares, then I'll switch to Purgatory Rakshasa. His level remains 10, but his class is now something far more sinister. The Purgatory Rakshasa class card appears. A demonic horned star warrior with immense strength and stamina, a stark contrast to the speedy assassin. This class comes with 2 powerful skills, Myriad Bones to Void, which absorbs power from corpses, and Triphase Gravity Calamity. His stats are completely reallocated, with his strength tripled and his stamina quadrupled. With this new power, Si Chen understands the path to victory. Different classes have different core advantages. Close quarters combat must rely on the warrior class with its high strength and stamina bonus. He leaps high into the air, activating his new ability. Gravity stacking to the max, increased downward impact force to the limit. He throws a punch, now infused with raw, destructive energy. As his fist plunged downward, the impact force amplified exponentially, surging from 200% to 400%, and finally reaching a staggering 600%. He roars, unleashing the full might of his new class. In this environment that already has high gravity, the power of my punch is amplified by a full 60 times. The phantom lion, once so confident, can only look up in sheer terror as the overwhelming force descends upon it. With a roar fueled by all his might, Si Chen screams, "You!" as the beast is utterly wiped out, crushed into the earth by a focused beam of gravitational energy. Si Chen's voice echoes across the wasteland. "Don't even think about stopping me." The system confirms the skill that delivered the final blow, Triphase Gravity Calamity in super heavy mode. The immense power takes its toll, leaving Si Chen panting, his hand trembling from the sheer exertion. He lies beside a cavernous crater, the only thing remaining of the phantom lion. A notification pops up, confirming he has obtained a phantom lion bone. The kill grants him 12,000 experience points, instantly pushing him to the next level. He is now level 11. Lying on the ground to recover, Si Chen pants, the intensity of the battle having pushed him to his limits. The system provides an explanation of his abilities. Every star on the card represents a multiplier of the stats. The more stars, the higher the strength after class change. It then compares his two classes. The Purgatory Rakshasa has 11 stars, while the Lightning Assassin only has 9. This means the overall amplification from the Rakshasa is far higher, making it a superior rank. Si Chen reflects on his performance. But just dealing with a B-rank monster took everything I had. It seems both of my current classes haven't broken through the B-rank limit yet. As he thinks about his classes, another thought suddenly strikes him. He looks at the monster's dissolving remains and wonders, why is it that after killing the monster this time, the system didn't show the devourable mark? He pants, catching his breath as he stands on the desolate landscape. And the gate to the next floor. But then a chilling thought crosses his mind. Could it be? Just as he thinks it, a rift tears open in the fabric of space before him. The rift widens into a massive, swirling black hole, a gateway to something terrible. From the darkness within the portal, countless pairs of menacing, glowing eyes stare back at him. The horrifying truth dawns on him. Could it be that the real Lord hasn't appeared yet? A whole pack of phantom lions pours out from the gate. Si Chen finally understands. The one I just killed with all my might was just a small mob. Before he can even recover from the shock, one of the beasts is already upon him, its claws swiping at his face. He is completely overwhelmed, torn to shreds by the relentless assault of the phantom pack. As he's being ripped apart, he thinks, only at this moment did I understand the true meaning of the Purgatory Rakshasa's words. He remembers the warning given to him. Once the door opens, what welcomes you will be endless pain. The memory continues as a lion roars in his face. But you must endure everything. Bloodied and exhausted, his will remains unshaken. It isn't just about enduring anymore. The warning echoes once again, you must conquer everything. With a grunt of pain, Si Chen jolts awake, drenched in sweat. He sits up in his dorm bed, breathing heavily. The brutal fight was all a hyper-realistic nightmare, a training simulation within his own mind. His roommate below is startled by the sudden movement. He clutches his arm, the phantom sensation still fresh. Muscles tearing, skin separating from bone, the pain in my dreams, is all incomparably real. His face hardens with resolve. To become stronger, there are no shortcuts. This lonely and arduous road of purgatory has only just begun. The scene shifts. It is May 20th, 2157. We are at the National Awakener University's Grand Auditorium for the Graduation Combat Assessment Team Formation Ceremony. On stage, seated at the main table, Director Gong Xuan casually sips his drink, a smug look on his face as his plan unfolds. A nervous buzz fills the auditorium as students whisper amongst themselves. The word has spread that not only are the higher-ups of the Guild Alliance watching live, but the rules for this year's assessment have suddenly been changed. Another student chimes in, no wonder the rules for this year's assessment have changed. Yeah, his friend agrees. In the background, Si Chen sits alone, eyes closed, seemingly unfazed by the chatter. In previous years, there were no minimum requirements for team size or rank. But this time, every team must have at least 5 members, and at least one of them must be high E rank or above. One student speculates, is this change to improve the entertainment value? Another simply replies, who knows? Director Gong Xuan taps his thermos, clearing his throat to get the student's attention. He announces, the rank information of all students in this batch has already been sent to everyone's wristbands. Please check your wristbands and complete your team formation as soon as possible. Immediately, the students activate their wrist devices, and holographic displays of the rankings light up the auditorium. The list reveals Gong Ting at the top as a D-rank high tier, with a long list of other D and E ranks below him. One of Si Chen's friends, a boy with glasses, scrolls through the list and cries out, "Hey, something's wrong." His friends are all listed as E rank, but what's shocking is the last name on the list. Si Chen, also ranked as a low E rank. He turns to Si Chen in disbelief. "Si Chen, how can you be only low E rank?" Si Chen remains silent, his expression unreadable. The news spreads quickly through the crowd. Didn't Si Chen test show C rank before? How did it turn into low E rank? A couple of other students scoff. So the demon heart really was broken back then. I was thinking since I couldn't get into President Gong Ting's team, I'd team up with Si Chen. I didn't expect him to be just a low E rank. The mockery continues. Perfect, now there's no way anyone would want to team up with him. Si Chen's gaze darkens, a flicker of crimson flashing in his eyes as he overhears the whispers. The students continue to gossip. The graduation assessment is so important, who would want to carry a few low-level deadweights? That kid Si Chen refused Gong Ting's invitation back then. He must be regretting it to death now. Gong Ting, a handsome student with yellow eyes, glances over at the commotion, his expression stoic. He looks up at his uncle, Director Gong Xuan, who sits on the stage with a satisfied smirk, his plan clearly working. The director thinks to himself, "My disappointing nephew. When will you learn how to truly utilize power and human nature?" His glasses gleam as he continues his internal monologue. "Let Uncle teach you a lesson. Your opponents won't even have the qualification to compete." Back on the floor, students are rushing to form teams. The name President Gong Ting echoes as people clamor to join the top student. A crowd gathers around Gong Ting, begging him, "Please let me join your team. Pick me, pick me." The crowd grows more desperate, with students shouting their qualifications. "President, I've been in the student council for 3 years. I definitely won't drag you down." A female student pleads, "President, my healer class will surely be a great help to the team." While another simply begs, "President, let me be your dog." One of Gong Ting's current teammates tries to control the crowd, yelling, "Hey, too loud. Get back, all of you. We can only add one more person at most." Half an hour passes. All across the auditorium, teams are finalized as students sync their wristbands, signified by a glowing, team-formed notification. Groups of students congratulate each other, wishing their new teammates luck on the assessment. In the midst of all the activity, Si Chen stands alone in a corner, isolated from the rest. One of Si Chen's dorm mates sighs in defeat, complaining, "We asked around several times, no one wants to join us." The mood is grim as the students realize their predicament. "We only have 4 people so far. Don't tell me we won't even be able to participate in the graduation assessment." Another teammate can't believe the results. "This is too strange. How could Si Chen's performance result be the lowest rank?" Si Chen looks on with cold eyes, understanding the trap laid for them. Registration requires at least 5 people and at least 1 high E rank. It feels like they are deliberately targeting our dorm. He knows exactly what's at stake. The graduation combat assessment is everyone's only chance to show their worth. Only by getting a high score with your team can you have good employment prospects. An explanation of the rules appears. In the final assessment, the number of monsters in the Devil's Cave will be determined by the number of team members. The infographic continues, illustrating that more team members simply mean more monsters to fight. It's not that the more people you have, the easier it is to get a high score. For Si Chen's group, the situation is dire. So even if they can't squeeze into a strong team like Gong Ting's, no one is willing to group up with low-ranked people. The truth of their situation is displayed for all to see. The 3 lowest E ranks in the entire school, Ma Long, Xiang Yu, and Si Chen, are all in their dorm. If this continues, they're doomed. Suddenly a voice cuts through the tension, calling out, "Hey, Xiang Zuo." The 4th roommate looks up, surprised. Another team tries to recruit him. "We're only missing 1 person. Come join our team." Surely you don't want to group up with those 3 low E-rank trash from your dorm? Otherwise, you might not even qualify for the graduation assessment. As Si Chen watches, his thoughts darken. If this goes on, we 3 low E-ranks are very likely to be abandoned by everyone. His thoughts drift to the image of the 3 of them being cast aside as low ranks. He finishes his thought, realizing that their mid-E-rank roommate would be dragged down with them, losing their chance to compete. But Xiang Zuo gives the other team a simple answer. "Sorry." He turns his back on them and faces his friends, declaring, "Our dorm agreed long ago to team up together. I won't abandon my roommates." The recruiters are furious. "Suit yourself. We only asked you to fill the numbers anyway. Rejecting us, you really don't know what's good for you." But Xiang Zhu retorts, "Don't look down on people." Meanwhile, the clock is ticking, and the team roster fills up with check marks, leaving fewer and fewer spots available. One of the teammates points to the screen in a panic. Almost everyone has finished forming teams. There are barely any high E ranks left now. We're clearly just missing one person, but no one is willing to come. As his teammate panics, Si Chen remains silent, but a cold determination flashes in his eyes. His thoughts drift to the man pulling the strings, the director of the employment office, Gong Xuan. Si Chen notes that he shares the same surname as his rival, Gong Ting, confirming he's from the powerful Gong family. Si Chen mentally lays out the director's scheme, changing the rules and tampering with his rank to isolate him. He scoffs internally. Does he think I'm a threat to Gong Ting? People with power really do whatever they want. But Si Chen's resolve only hardens. I am definitely participating in this graduation assessment. As a switching class notification appears before him, he thinks, since you are targeting me so blatantly. The class switch completes, and golden lightning erupts around Si Chen. With a dangerous glint in his eyes, he finishes his thought. Then there's no need for me to be polite either. He has a plan. After all, assessments aren't the only way to prove one's strength. The sudden surge of energy from Si Chen startles the proctors overseeing the assembly. His own teammates are caught completely off guard. One of them shouts in a panic, "Hey, brother, what are you doing?" The narrator explains that Awakener schools have a special tradition to facilitate students' mastery. The other students are in shock, wondering what Si Chen is planning. The rule is simple and absolute. In any setting, students can initiate a 1v1 challenge. Si Chen's actions are a clear provocation, but it's the most direct way to show his true power. While many would refuse such a sudden challenge, he knows his target, the prideful Gong Ting, definitely won't. Si Chen stares down his rival, Gong Ting, his plan laid out in his mind. As long as I defeat him, people who want high scores will surely come to team up. But just as he's about to make his move, a new voice calls out from the auditorium entrance. Si Chen, is your team still missing people? A mysterious student walks down the aisle, their voice laced with amusement. I also want to participate in the school's graduation assessment this year, Tilda. The figure is revealed to be a striking young woman with short blonde hair. She confidently states, I reached D rank back in middle school. Joining your team shouldn't drag you down, right? Si Chen's teammates are absolutely stunned. One thinks to himself, holy crap, when did Si Chen hook up with Lanyue? Another simply cheers, awesome. The shockwave from Lanyue's announcement hits Gong Ting's group hard. One of them turns to his cousin, stammering in disbelief. Cousin W, what is she saying? Her words stun the entire hall into silence. Even director Gong Xuan, the architect of Si Chen's problems, is left completely speechless as his scheme derails in an instant. Lanyue confidently walks through the stunned crowd, the sound of her heels echoing in the silent auditorium. The students break into whispers, unable to believe what they are seeing. Vice President Lanyue wants to team up with Si Chen's bunch of noobs. The murmurs continue as she approaches Si Chen's group. Her background has always been mysterious. I heard she's a super genius girl from the Saint He Kingdom. Gong Xuan, furious at this interference, decides to step in. Student Lanyue, as an exchange student, technically you aren't qualified to participate in our school's graduation assessment. He continues, laying out the regulations he intends to use against her. Since you transferred here, you've never taken a rank test. Your participation is completely against the regulations. Suddenly, an imposing figure with a large scar over his eye appears in a flash of purple light. He speaks, but his voice is interrupted by a panicked proctor yelling, Principal, when did you appear? Director Gong Xuan is horrified by the unexpected arrival, thinking, why is the principal here too? The principal addresses Lanyue with an amused tone. Lanyue, you're only here at our school for a short exchange. What are you doing joining in on the fun here? Si Chen is shocked by the principal's entrance, thinking, I remember the principal's class is warrior. How can he have teleportation abilities? The principal and Lanyue engage in a battle of wits. He claims her participation would be unfair, but she retorts with a sly smile. Oh my Tilda, what a pity then Tilda. Si Chen watches the two powerhouses interact, a bead of sweat forming as his own power senses flare. He tries to use his ability to gauge their strength, but comes to a shocking conclusion. I can't detect the ranks of those two. Director Gong Xuan, seeing a chance to get back in control, eagerly agrees with the principal's initial stance. The principal is right. Our school has such a good reputation because we've always followed the rules, but the principal ignores him, instead addressing the entire hall. He reminds them that the university's purpose is to cultivate superclass awakeners and give them a stage to shine. His voice booms as he speaks of the graduation assessment, calling it a decades-old tradition and one of the most important turning points in a student's life. The principal's gaze becomes sharp as he delivers his final point directly to Gong Xuan. If a student loses this opportunity due to some special factors, how can the school afford that responsibility? Gong Xuan breaks out in a cold sweat, the principal's veiled threat hitting its mark. Is this old thing hinting at me? Did he realize I secretly tampered with things? The director looks from the principal to Lanyue and then to Si Chen, finally understanding the situation. Is it for that kid? Realizing he's been caught, Gong Xuan decides to retreat. HMPH, forget it. No need to butt heads with the old thing. He consoles himself with the thought that he has already done enough damage. Gong Ting, uncle can only help you this far. The high-ranked students have all formed their teams, leaving Si Chen dragging 3 trash teammates to compete. This time you should be able to win easily. Gong Xuan immediately changes his tune, bowing to the principal. Oh, principal, you are right. It was our employment office's lack of consideration. One of the proctors takes the stage to make the official announcement. I announce, teams with fewer than 5 members or teams without a high E-rank member can also submit their registration. The gates of the graduation combat assessment are forever open to everyone. With the rules changed, Si Chen's team is officially formed as their bracelets light up in unison. His roommates erupt in celebration. Yay, we can successfully participate in the assessment. They immediately turn to Si Chen, unanimously deciding, Si Chen, you be the captain. The principal observes the scene, then turns to the mysterious girl beside him. Lanyue, your interest in Si Chen is much stronger than I imagined. He muses on the coming battle. On one side, the strongest team in school history led by Gong Ting. On the other, Si Chen and his 3 lowest-ranked roommates. A smile spreads across the principal's face. It makes me curious. What devil's cave will they choose, and how many points will they score in the end? The proctor announces the next phase. After team formation is complete, the captain can proceed with the devil's cave selection. Before he can even finish his sentence, a notification chimes. Ding dong, submitted. The proctor is stunned. A team has already selected a devil's cave so fast. The crowd erupts in confusion as the choice is broadcasted. Ah, it's Si Chen. Si Chen's team has already selected a devil's cave. One of the students screams in utter disbelief at the screen. Holy shit, what they chose is actually. Even Si Chen's own teammates are sent into a panic, grabbing him and yelling, Si Chen, are you crazy? Retract it, retract it. My ancestor Si Chen, oh God. As his teammates scream, do you know what you chose? Si Chen simply stares forward, his red eyes glowing with an unshakable and terrifying confidence. The graduation battle examination marks the first time that students form teams in order to enter a real dungeon. Students earn credit by defeating mobs and monster lords inside the dungeon. For dungeon completion, a maximum score of 10 points can be earned. Slaying all monsters within the dungeon earns 10 points, while each surviving monster deducts 1 point. Defeating the dungeon's boss earns 20 points for the boss slayer category, with no penalty for failure. And for completion time, finishing all tasks within 1 hour earns another 20 points. Every 5 minutes over the time limit deducts 1 point. Different dungeon ranks represent varying degrees of difficulty, with corresponding score multipliers. An F-rank dungeon has a score bonus of 1.5 times for a maximum of 75 points. An E-rank dungeon has a 2 times bonus, allowing for a maximum score of 100. Therefore, choosing an F-rank dungeon will yield a maximum score of 75 points, but choosing an E-rank dungeon will yield a maximum score of 100 points. Achieving 100% completion, slaying the boss, and finishing within the time limit in an E-rank dungeon results in a perfect 100-point score. All members of the team with the highest score will receive an offer from the prestigious Imperial Guild. Furthermore, the class MVP, selected through team voting and instructor evaluation, will be directly appointed to a management position within the Imperial Guild and receive a prize of 1 million yuan. The students buzz with excitement and strategy. One mentions, the highest score ever recorded in the graduation examination was 90 points. It was set by a genius former student who is now the leader of Imperial Guild. Another student adds, the E-rank dungeon is pretty tough. You'll need to have at least 3 D ranks on your team to stand a chance. All eyes are on one particular group as a student remarks. Gong Ting's team just might be able to challenge the school's all-time high record score. Suddenly a chime echoes through the hall. Dying submitted. A student with glasses looks up in shock, exclaiming, a team already picked out their dungeon. That was fast. He stares at his screen in disbelief, his eyes widening. Holy crap, it was Si Chen's team. His jaw drops as he sees the selection. He actually chose that one? A D-rank dungeon. The screen confirms it. Si Chen has selected a D-rank dungeon, now awaiting team confirmation. The news sends a wave of shock through the classroom. And no one's ever beat a D-rank dungeon before. Did that dude fuck up and press the wrong button? One of Si Chen's teammates rushes over to him, pointing frantically at the screen. Si Chen, have you lost your mind? Do you have any idea what you've just picked? Elsewhere, another teammate completely melts down, clutching his head in despair. You psycho, how did I wind up on the same team with a psycho like you? The notification appears on his wrist device. The captain has selected D-rank dungeon. Do you agree to join? He thinks to himself in a panic. Is it too late to quit the team? A curly-haired student confronts Si Chen, his voice trembling with fear. Dude, have you fully thought this through? This is a D-rank dungeon we're talking about. A D-ranking means. Si Chen doesn't even flinch. He simply replies, MHM, I've thought this through. Just then, another submission alert rings out. And to everyone's surprise, a second team locks in a D-rank dungeon. The screen shows a portrait of Gong Ting. A confirmation message appears. Selected D-rank dungeon, all team members have confirmed. The rivalry has officially begun. A confirmation message appears. Dying, all team members have accepted. Team Gong Ting has submitted successfully. The other students are in an uproar. Holy shit, another D-rank, another team chose the D-rank dungeon. Oh my god. But Gong Ting's team is completely unfazed. Leaning back in his chair, he smirks and says, this year's going to be entertaining. A blonde girl on his team scoffs at Si Chen's group. Heh, Tilda, what's with that team trying to act all tough? They're not even thinking about their own abilities, Tilda. She continues, looking over at Si Chen's team huddled in the distance. They know they're gonna be dead last anyway, so they're just doing this for attention. She laughs mockingly. It's a D-rank dungeon. There's no way his teammates will even agree to join. They should just switch teams already while they still have the chance to quit. The team that was just barely put together is already gonna fall apart. Too bad, so. Back in Si Chen's group, the student with the curly hair and glasses stares intently at his leader, a silent resolve forming on his face. He thinks to himself, Si Chen's expression. He's completely determined. When did he start having such a powerful aura around him? You used to completely lean on me for the entirety of our time at school. He reflects on their shared past, his gaze unwavering. With a grunt of determination, he slams the confirm button on his wrist. We've already made it through the past 4 years together. So I'm with you till the very end. Another teammate follows suit, confirming his participation as well. It's all the same from last place. Whether it's a D-rank or F-rank, it doesn't matter to me. It is what it is, so we might as well go into the D-rank dungeon and see what it's all about. Seeing this, the third teammate grits his teeth, sweating nervously as he shouts, Hey, you guys. He leaps up, his previous fear turning into indignant rage. Are you serious? I'm clearly the top dog in this dorm, so how the hell am I the last one? He smashes the confirm button with newfound resolve. I'm joining too. Let's do this. We're all freaking graduating soon anyways. So let's go balls to the wall. With the final confirmation, the system announces their submission. Dying, all team members have accepted. Team Si Chen has submitted successfully. Si Chen looks at his 3 teammates, all of whom have chosen to trust him despite the odds. A small smile plays on his lips as he says, Everyone. He bows his head slightly, his tone sincere. I'm sorry. I chose the D-rank dungeon in order to get MVP. On the other side, Gong Ting clearly overheard what Si Chen said. But now, I'm forcing you all to go down this path with me. A confident grin spreads across his face as he rallies them. So let's aim for the top score together. From across the hall, a voice cuts through the air, sharp and challenging. The MVP is mine. It's Gong Ting staring directly at Si Chen. Si Chen turns, his expression unreadable as his teammate looks on in surprise. Gong Ting's eyes glow with golden light, his aura flaring as he makes his declaration. Si Chen, there can only be one strongest student in the entire school. Watching from the sidelines, Lanyue smiles faintly. This is the first time I've seen that kind of expression on Gong Ting. As the 2 rivals face off, another student murmurs, the battle between those 2 is finally out in the open. Observing the bold declarations, an older man with a gray beard smiles. The youth of today truly are incredible and fearless. Lanyue shares her doubts. But Si Chen choosing a D-rank dungeon? That's a bit overconfident of him. Even if he's a C-rank, it would still be impossible for him to solo a D-rank dungeon. She explains, the bonus multiplier for D-rank dungeons is 3x, and so the maximum score possible is 150 points. but the difficulty is several times higher than that of an E-rank dungeon. Looking at the silhouettes of Si Chen's team, she concludes, given his team's current capabilities, that choice clearly wouldn't be the best option. The older man smiles calmly. Yes, there's only a little over a month left until the battle examination begins. His thoughts drift to the other students training in advanced simulators. It will be impossible for them to develop the necessary capabilities in such a short period of time. As he watches the elite students practice in the combat simulation room, he thinks to himself, I hope that when the time comes, Si Chen and his team are able to put on a decent performance. But Si Chen's team isn't using any simulators. With only 17 days left until the exam, they are out on the school field, exhausted and vomiting from a grueling physical workout. One of the teammates pants trying to catch his breath. Hey, Si Chen, everyone else is in the elemental power training room using the monster combat simulator. Why are you making us do all of this? He continues to complain. Dodgeball, shuttle runs, sprints, and long-distance runs. I mean, our graduation exam isn't a triathlon. So what's the point of doing all this stuff? Si Chen looks at them, a single bead of sweat on his temple. At this point, it doesn't matter how much you practice elemental abilities in a simulation training. In the end, it's all still just a simulation. He lectures his worn-out team. When you finally enter an unfamiliar dungeon, facing powerful monsters you've never faced before, when fear of the unknown instantly washes over you like a flood, it won't be the theories you drilled into your brain that determines your fate. A vision of a desperate battle flashes through his mind. And it won't be some makeshift attack combo thrown together at the last second. It'll be your instinct. As his teammates listen, finally starting to understand, he explains, physical endurance, explosive power, and reaction speed are what we're training right now. We're doing all this in order to heighten your physical instincts. He continues, his voice firm. The benefits you get from using the school's simulation training are incredibly marginal. The only true effective training you can do is by entering an actual dungeon for battle experience. His eyes glow red with intensity as he delivers the final, harsh truth. But ordinary people like us don't have access to actual dungeons to train in. Only those with status and privilege are able to. People who were never ordinary to begin with. With a blinding flash of light, Gong Ting's blade slices cleanly through a monster, demonstrating the overwhelming power of the elite. Inside a training dungeon, Gong Ting reflects on the nature of power. And they'll stop at nothing to widen the gap between themselves and us outsiders, in order to keep themselves in a position of power forever. His voice is cold and detached, a statement of fact from someone who has lived this reality. Since birth, they've already possessed what the rest of us spend our entire lives pursuing, but can only hope to attain. The words hang in the air, describing a chasm that seems impossible to cross. Back on the school grounds, Ling Yu voices the group's doubt, his expression a mix of frustration and helplessness. Well then, what can a bunch of nobodies like us do? A calm, determined voice cuts through the uncertainty. It's Si Chen. By entering the Imperial Guild, he states, his crimson eyes burning with intensity, we'll be crossing that social barrier right before their eyes. All three roommates felt the sheer weight of Si Chen's words, their eyes widening with a glimmer of newfound hope. This graduation exam is the one and only chance for us to surpass them, Si Chen emphasized. For Si Chen, this is more than just an exam, it's personal. It'll be my best chance to surpass them as well. He looks at his teammates, a silent promise in his gaze. And that's why I'll do my absolute best to fulfill this promise to everyone. We'll absolutely win. To keep that promise, Si Chen pushes himself to the limit, battling spectral beasts in the Dream Tower's Starfall Barrens. The training is brutal. He takes a vicious slash to the chest, blood spraying from the wound. He's knocked back by another savage blow, the impact rattling his entire body. But he doesn't stay down. 10 days until the exam. Si Chen puts his team through a grueling physical regimen. While he leads the pack with ease, his teammates struggle to keep up. 5 more laps, keep up, one shouts as another collapses, gasping, no, I can't go on. Back in the Dream Tower, pain only fuels his resolve. Gritting his teeth, Si Chen retaliates, lightning crackling around his fists as he strikes back against the phantom creature. Meanwhile, Gong Ting continues his own training, effortlessly dispatching monsters with a confident smirk. For him, this is just another day. Only 5 days left. Si Chen's training intensity only increases, never wavering. He powers through push-ups with a massive weight strapped to his back, while his teammates practice supporting heavy weights with both hands, counting every single rep. 101-102. 3 days to go. Gong Ting stands alone, surrounded by the smoldering remains of his enemies, the picture of calm and collected power. With only 2 days left, Si Chen's relentless grind pays off. As he strikes down the last of the phantom beasts, a notification appears. He's leveled up, becoming a level 16-volt assassin. One day, the final day of preparation. Bloodied but unbroken, Si Chen's eyes glow with fierce determination. The real battle begins now. June 17, 2157. It's the day of the graduation combat exam. A floating drone activates, its robotic voice echoing through the hall. Beep, beep. Hello, examinees. I'm your escort drone for this exam. In the waiting area, a figure in a dark, hooded jacket calmly fastens his combat gloves, making final preparations for the battle ahead. Si Chen stands confidently among the other students, his equipment gleaming. The drone gives its final instructions. Please check that your wristbands and equipment are worn correctly. The drone's announcement rings out as a blinding teal light erupts before the assembled students. Attention, everyone. The graduation exam officially begins. The camera pans over the prestigious National Awakened University, where the future of the world's hunters is about to be decided. Outside, limousines signal the arrival of very important spectators. Stepping out to meet the convoy was a man with a scarred face and an overwhelming aura of authority. The school principal greeted him with deep respect. It has been a long time, Chairman Gong. This distinguished man is Gong Lin, co-founder of the Imperial Guild and Gong Ting's father. He greets the principal with a smile. Sorry to keep you waiting, principal. Watching from the windows, the students couldn't hide their amazement. That's one of the founding members of the Imperial Guild. He looks so incredibly sharp. The onlookers buzz with excitement and confusion. Who's in the car behind them? To think even an Imperial Guild founder and the principal came personally to invite them out. A bodyguard opens the door to the limousine, and a man with pinkish-red hair dressed in an elegant suit steps out. Adjusting his cufflinks, the man's identity is revealed, sending a shockwave through the crowd. He is Carl Cavendish, the vice chairman of the World Guild Alliance. The teachers are floored, their jaws dropping in disbelief. The Alliance vice chairman. The Guild Alliance vice chairman actually came to our school. One of them continues, still reeling from the shock. Damn, people like that you might never see once in your life. No wonder they cleared out the whole admin district today. The stakes of this exam have just been raised to a global level. The Guild Alliance is the most powerful organization in the world right now, if they notice you. As the VIPs are escorted inside, the onlookers can only dream of the possibilities. The live broadcast of the graduation combat exam is about to begin. Please head inside. And no, even just getting in contact with the Guild Alliance, your whole life could change in an instant. Inside the observation room, the vice principal begins the briefing. This year, 184 students are participating in the graduation combat exam, divided into 28 teams. He continues, standing before a wall of monitors showing the students' choices. 23 teams chose F-rank layers, 3 teams chose E-rank layers, and 2 teams chose D-rank layers. A woman with her hair in a bun and sharp glasses speaks up, her tone laced with surprise. Some teams actually chose D-rank layers. This is Sigrid, the Secretary General of the Guild Alliance. She turns to the school staff, her expression serious. Even for pro-guild parties, D-rank layers are considered dangerous. Did you properly warn the students about how dangerous layers are? All the while, Carl Cavendish relaxes, seemingly unimpressed. The vice principal reassures her. Of course, we explained everything clearly in advance. Since they rarely get real combat, the vast majority of students are lowly rank E. They can barely handle normal mobs in F-rank layers. To illustrate his point, a scene from an F-rank layer plays out, showing a student taking on a Thornjaw Salamander, a basic F-rank Volt warrior. But they struggle quite a bit against the lair lords. The students are shown giving their all just to face a large Thornjaw Salamander, proving that a lord's strength far surpasses regular mobs of the same rank. Students have to give everything they've got to defeat an F-rank lair lord, but E-rank lairs are on a completely different level. Inside one such lair, a team of students looks terrified. Every mob in an E-rank lair is as strong as an F-rank lair lord. The reason for their fear becomes clear as hordes of stag beetle spiders, E-rank flora assassins, crawl towards them. One student sweats profusely, his face pale with terror. How is an E-rank lair this hard? This is way beyond what we expected. The vice principal concludes, so for most students, clearing an E-rank lair is basically a mission impossible. Sigrid presses further, concerned for the students' well-being. If a student runs into danger, what safety measures are there? The vice principal's expression is firm and reassuring. Rest assured, Secretary General, students are our most valuable resource. He explains the precautions. Outside each lair, armed Imperial Guild personnel are standing by. If an extreme danger is detected, they'll intervene immediately. Plus, the examinees' wristbands already have a teleport function. Even as a monstrous bug attacks, the students have a way out. When faced with overwhelming danger, a student can simply quit. We see one scream in terror, I quit the exam, pressing the button on his wristband, which immediately flashes with a withdrawn notification. As soon as a student chooses to give up the combat exam, the principal explains, they'll be teleported out of the lair immediately. On screen, a team reappears in a safe room, shaken but unharmed. That was terrifying, wah. Sigrid seems impressed despite her concerns. Even so, there are still 2 teams that chose the higher difficulty D-rank lairs. Your school is really full of talent. I'm looking forward to seeing their performance. The vice principal's reply is grim, his eyes narrowing slightly. Yeah, I want to see how long they can last. He watches the live feed of Si Chen's team trekking through the snow, his skepticism clear. HMPH, those kids will bail out soon enough. The team enters the D-rank lair, the high-risk cloud forest summit. It's a treacherous, icy landscape of massive trees with shadowy figures lurking on the branches. One of the teammates stammers, WH, what the hell is that thing? Perched on a cliff edge is a ghost bat monkey, a D-rank cloud assassin. Its grotesque features and sharp claws are enough to terrify anyone. That thing looks creepy as hell. Si Chen, however, remains calm, analyzing the threat. Ghost bat monkey cloud-type monster, specializes in group attacks with extremely fast aerial dash speed. You have to watch out for their dive attacks at all times. From above, the monsters have already spotted their prey, their shadowy forms looming over the unsuspecting students. Without warning, a whole swarm of ghost bat monkeys dives down from the trees, screeching as they descend upon the team. Si Chen's eyes sharpen. He's the first to react to the ambush, yelling out a single word of warning. Incoming. The attack was lightning fast. One of the students leaned aside to dodge, completely blindsided by the terrifying speed of the ambush. Another teammate scrambles to get out of the way, tumbling desperately through the snow to evade the attack. A third leaps through the air, barely managing to avoid the deadly dive bomb thanks to Si Chen's warning and their grueling physical training. His teammates collapse onto the snow, breathing heavily in a mix of terror and relief. Holy *T, we actually just dodged a D-rank monster's attack, another exclaims. I'm still alive. Just as they recover, another monster charges forward, kicking up a massive wave of snow. But this time, someone is ready for it. One of the teammates watches in stunned silence, his eyes wide as he tries to process what he's seeing. Si Chen, Lightning crackles around Si Chen as he stands over the bloody corpses of 3 ghost bat monkeys. His teammate finishes his thought in utter disbelief. Took down 3 D-rank monsters in an instant. Si Chen, his eyes glowing with power, turns to his roommates. Your current strength isn't enough to handle them, he warns coolly. Just protect yourselves here. With a final command to leave the rest to me. He explodes forward, launching himself into the horde of monsters like a bolt of lightning. But the danger isn't just in front of him. A piercing scream of "Watch out!" echoes as a winged creature ambushes the others, forcing them to dive out of the way. The attack connects, slamming one of the students hard against a frozen tree trunk with a sickening thud. Watching the chaos, Ma Long has a sudden, dawning realization. So that's why he was training our reaction speed and explosiveness before. He never expected us to provide any actual help. It was just so we could protect ourselves. The self-proclaimed leader of their dorm seethes with frustration, thinking to himself, damn it, I've clearly been the boss of this dorm the whole time. Yet now I have to rely on this guy to get me to graduation. While they grapple with their wounded pride, Si Chen is already deep in battle, tearing through the demonic bats with brutal efficiency. The creatures swarm him, a chaotic flurry of claws and fangs descending from all sides. But Si Chen is faster. He moves like a phantom, his golden energy slicing through the monsters before they can even touch him. He becomes a whirlwind of destruction, each movement precise and deadly, leaving a trail of defeated monsters in his wake. Watching the one-sided slaughter, the dorm leader is stunned. I didn't believe Ma Long when he said Si Chen was strong, he thinks, but seeing it with my own eyes now. This guy is so strong he doesn't seem like a graduate at all. Si Chen's eyes burn with cold focus, every ounce of his being concentrated on the fight. The spectacle of golden light carving through the darkness solidifies the crushing truth in his mind. He's clearly a battle-hardened warrior. The gap in their power is undeniable. When did this guy suddenly become so reliable? He despairs. I've truly been left behind. While Ma Long is lost in thought, a stray monster breaks off from the pack. Ma Long spots it charging towards them and shouts a warning to the team. Watch out! Another one is coming from behind. The bat-like creature lunges. But at the last second, Xiangzhu manages to perform a series of rolls to dodge the attack. Having narrowly escaped death, Xiangzhu immediately counterattacks, channeling blazing fire energy into his hand before grabbing the monster's leg and yanking it back. With both hands ablaze, he pins the monster's legs down and shouts to his friends. Hey, Xiangyu, Ma Long, we can't just keep acting like punching bags and relying entirely on Si Chen forever. His words ignite a spark in the others. This isn't just Si Chen's fight, he reminds them. This isn't just his graduation assessment. With a furious roar, his eyes blazing with determination, Xiangzhu declares, It's OUR graduation assessment too. Inspired, Ma Long's spirit soars. You're right, he agrees, as green light begins to emanate from his outstretched hand. He unleashes his own power, casting a spell. Flora chant, Vine Lock, he yells. Have a taste of this. Thick, twisting vines shoot out from the ground, wrapping around the ghost bat monkey and constricting it tightly. But their opponent is a D-rank monster. It lets out a piercing screech, and with a single flex of power, the thick vines snap like twigs, knocking Xiangzhu back. Ma Long stares in disbelief, his confidence shattered as he cries out, Ah! It broke free instantly. Just as the monster breaks free, a blast of cold air hits it. Another teammate, Xiangyu, has joined the fight, casting Cloud Chant, Frost Breeze, which visibly slows the creature down. With his hand glowing from the ice magic, Xiangyu yells, I slowed it down. Let's attack together. Ma Long, his determination returning, charges his fist with green energy and shouts, Let's see you run now. This time their powers combine. Combo skill, Frost Breeze plus Vine Lock. The icy winds and reinforced vines wrap around the monster, completely immobilizing it. Together they scream, Xiangzhu, now. Hearing the call, Xiangzhu, already prepared, yells, Got it! As he forms a swirling ball of fire in his hand. He leaps into the air and unleashes his ultimate move with a cry of, Taste this! It's the signature skill of a nuclear mage. Burst Flame Bullet. The attack hits the frozen monster head-on, with a massive explosion of fire and force. The ghost bat monkey lets out a final, agonizing howl as it's engulfed in flames. But incredibly, it's still standing. Xiangzhu can't believe it. Shit, it's this tanky. He unleashes a rapid barrage of smaller fireballs. The monster is battered by a relentless series of explosions, pushing it back. The combined hold is starting to fail. Ma Long strains, sweat pouring down his face as he yells, I can't hold it back anymore. Xiangyu is also fatting fast, his face contorted in pain. I'm at my limit, he gasps. Seeing his chance is about to disappear, Xiangzhu makes a decision. FCK and I'm going all out. He begins to gather every last bit of his energy into a single, massive sphere of fire above his head. His face becomes a mask of pure rage and effort as he bellows. This is my nuclear mage, converged burst flame bullet. With a final scream, he hurls the supercharged attack, and the entire area is consumed by a cataclysmic explosion. As the smoke clears, a small drone floats over the monster's remains, its cheerful voice cutting through the silence. Congratulations! Congratulations! Successfully killed a ghost bat monkey. Exhausted but victorious, the three of them collapse onto the snow, laughing with relief and pride. We did it, we actually took down a D-rank monster. Drawn by the massive explosion, Si Chen watches them from a distance, a silent observer. Lying on the ground, one of them spots him and calls out, Hey, Si Chen, did you see that? Below them, the monster's corpse dissolves, leaving behind a single item, a ghost bat monkey finger bone. Still giddy with success, Xiangzhu props himself up with a smug grin, boasting, It was a piece of cake. Si Chen stands surrounded by the corpses of dozens of monsters he defeated alone. He offers a slight smile, Yeah, good job. Just then, the drone announces, Congratulations, all mobs within this devil's cave have been killed. Meanwhile, in a dark observation room, an examiner stares at his monitor, his face pale with shock. How is this possible? These trash students with zero combat experience. He watches the live feed in utter disbelief, stammering to himself. Actually killed a D-rank monster above their level. Behind the frantic examiner, other, more imposing figures watch the same screens in silence, their expressions unreadable. One of them, a relaxed young man with pinkish hair named Carl Cavendish, finally breaks the silence. Tilda, he muses. This young man is performing quite excellently. His eyes are fixed on the screen showing Si Chen's face. He continues, and a small, knowing smile plays on his lips as he finishes his thought, a statement that hangs heavy in the air. He looks a lot like an old acquaintance. Carl Cavendish leans against the wall, a slight smile playing on his lips. He finally remembers where he heard that name before. It was Si Chen. Gong Lin stares at the monitors with intense focus. His face couldn't look more displeased with the way things are playing out. Gong Chuan observes from the side, his expression filled with anxiety. He realizes that if Carl continues to focus only on Si Chen during the exam, the Gong family's plans will be completely ruined. "Look, everyone!" Gong Chuan shouted, pointing excitedly at one of the main displays. He drew everyone's attention to a team that was making record-breaking time. The screen shows Gong Ting's team already halfway through their D-rank dungeon. Their combat efficiency is staggering, leaving a trail of defeated monsters in their wake. A female examiner adjusts her glasses, impressed by what she's seeing. Their coordination is so flawless it's as if they're a professional guild raid team rather than just students. Carl Cavendish finds the whole display quite interesting. He notes that this year's graduating class is proving to be much more impressive than previous ones. Gong Chuan smiles with smug satisfaction, having successfully drawn every eye to the Gong Ting team's battle. He knows that the real show hasn't even begun yet. Inside the Gloomven Grotto, the team faces off against a swarm of noxious toadstools. These D-rank monsters are known for their toxic spores and aggressive nature. The team's flower chanter strikes a pose and unleashes her withering hymn. The sound waves ripple through the air, instantly debuffing the monster's strength, stamina, and speed. "Gather 'em!" The Star Mage received the command and immediately clapped his hands together. A surge of energy began to coalesce, pulling the weakened toadstools into a tight cluster. He followed up with Astral Fusion, dragging a swarm of monsters and pinning them to a single spot amidst pink and purple light. The team's coordination was perfectly timed to maximize the damage. In a flash of steel, the team leader draws his sword. He moves with a grace and speed that far exceeds his peers. Gong Ting unleashes his searing fracture skill, sending a wave of fire and force through the monster group. The impact is devastating, clearing the remaining enemies in a single blow. As a C-rank flame soldier, Gong Ting stands tall, his eyes glowing with power. He looks every bit the prodigy the Gong family claims him to be. The team laughs as they stand over the charred remains of their enemies. They note that these monsters are exactly like the ones they fought during their specialized training. One of the members smirks, realizing just how much easier life is when you have the right connections. It's clear to them that the exam was rigged in the Gong family's favor from the start. "At this rate, we'll become champions in no time," one of them shouts confidently. They turn their sights toward the boss room, eager to finish their record-breaking run. Far away from the cheers, Si Chen's group battles the freezing winds of the Cloudwood summit. The air is thick with snow as they trudge up the steep mountainside. Si Chen leads the way, his gaze steady despite the blinding blizzard. He remains completely unbothered by the harsh conditions, his mind focused on the goal ahead. The group has reached the peak of the Cloudwood summit, a notorious high-risk area within the D-rank dungeon. The atmosphere here is noticeably more heavy and dangerous. The teammates can't believe they actually made it to the top. They look out over the snowy expanse, catching their breath after the grueling climb. Their relief is cut short when they spot the Frostwraith ape nearby. The D-rank Cloud Soldier is busy tearing into a fresh kill, its massive fangs stained with blood. "Is that the Monster Lord?" The Glass's teammate stammers, his face pale with fear. The sheer size and ferocity of the beast are enough to make anyone second-guess their choices. The Frostwraith ape looks up from its meal, its glowing red eyes locking onto the newcomers. It snarls, blood dripping from its mouth as it prepares to defend its territory. "Holy Shi'ai, it's looking at us!" The Glass's teammate screams, his eyes wide behind his spectacles. He panics as the monster stands to its full, intimidating height. The ape roars and charges with surprising speed, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. While his teammates scramble away in terror, Si Chen remains perfectly still, waiting for the right moment. Just as the beast reaches him, Si Chen delivers a powerful kick straight to its jaw. Lightning crackles around his leg, the impact sending a spray of blood and broken teeth into the air. The force of the blow sends the massive ape flying backward. It crashes into the snow, the sound of the impact echoing across the summit. Si Chen doesn't give it a chance to recover. He leaps into the air, lightning arcing across his body as he prepares his next move. He brings his foot down with crushing force, catching the monster right in the face. The shockwave from the strike shatters the ground beneath them. With a final, lightning-fast flourish, he slices the beast apart. It all happens so quickly that the ape is dead before its body even hits the ground again. The glass's teammate is frozen in shock, unable to believe what he just witnessed. He can't wrap his head around how Si Chen killed a Lord-level monster so easily. A system message appears, confirming the kill and the gain of 200 experience points. They've also acquired 1 Frostwraith ape fur, a standard loot drop. Si Chen stands over the remains of the monster, his expression unreadable. His teammates slowly approach, still shaken by the sudden burst of violence. He finds it strange that killing a lord of a D-rank dungeon would provide such low experience and poor loot. His red eyes narrow as he begins to suspect something is off. Si Chen scans the area, his instincts telling him that the fight isn't over. He doesn't let his guard down even as his teammates celebrate the victory. "Hey, you guys, check this out!" One of the teammates shouts from across the clearing. They've found something hidden within a hollowed-out tree trunk. Inside the hollow is a massive cluster of shimmering mid-tier mana crystals. The sheer volume of wealth stashed here is enough to make anyone's head spin. The group is over the moon, already dreaming of how they'll spend the money from selling the crystals. They laugh and cheer, thinking they've just hit the ultimate jackpot. "Hold on," Si Chen warns, his voice sharp and cold. He senses a sudden shift in the mana around them, and it isn't coming from the crystals. But it was already too late. His teammate's hand had already touched the crystal, triggering a deadly trap. The real threat has finally revealed itself. The team doesn't even have time to react as a sudden, freezing gale sweeps across the summit. The blizzard is so thick it practically swallows them whole. Si Chen stares into the whiteout, his red eyes narrowing as the temperature drops to impossible levels. He looks completely unfazed, even as the ice begins to form around him. With a deafening roar of magic, the Arctic nova erupts. In an instant, the entire summit is transformed into a forest of jagged, glowing ice shards. Everything falls silent as the blizzard clears, leaving the entire team frozen solid. They stand like statues in the middle of the frozen wasteland, their progress brought to a dead stop. Back in the observation room, the screen showing Team Si Chen suddenly cuts to static. A bright red, no signal warning blinks across the center of the display. Gong Chuan pulls at his mustache, a smug look crossing his face. He remarks that they fell right into the trap, nodding that high-level monsters can be surprisingly intelligent. He turns to Carl Cavendish, suggesting that the students' lives are now in clear danger. He believes it's time for the guild rescue team to step in and end the exam before someone gets killed. The massive wall of monitors shows dozens of other teams in action, but all eyes are on the blacked-out screen at the center. The atmosphere in the room has shifted from excitement to concern. The principal remains unbothered, pointing out that their wristbands are still reporting stable vital signs. He adds that there's no indication in their neural data that they've lost the will to fight. He insists that the choice to withdraw should be left entirely in the hands of the examinees themselves. He believes they've earned the right to decide their own fate. Back on the mountain, the Glass's teammate lets out a violent sneeze, his breath coming out in clouds of frost. He's barely clinging to consciousness as the cold bites into his skin. Huddled against the wind, Ma Long realized he was the only one who hadn't been frozen solid after the initial blast, thanks to his own resistance as a cloud class. If it hadn't been for that, he would have been frozen stiff along with the others. He isn't alone on the summit, however. A dark, towering shadow looms over his hunched form, its presence heavy with the smell of old ice and death. The Bone King of Frozen Remains reveals itself, a terrifying skeletal figure draped in tattered robes and a jagged, icy crown. A bright blue core of mana glows within its ribcage. Ma Long looked up, his eyes wide with horror. He whispered to himself, wondering if this monster was the true lord of the dungeon. The creature's eerie laughter echoes through the snow, a dry, rattling sound that seems to come from everywhere at once. It looms over its prey like a silent sentinel of death. It stands as a grim reminder of why this dungeon is ranked so high. The Bone King's presence alone is enough to drain the last bits of warmth from the air. The teammate's mind races, remembering a description from the Monster Compendium about a sinister cloud mage that loves to toy with its victims. He realizes they're in far more trouble than they thought. This is no ordinary boss. It's the rare rank C Lord-class monster, the Bone King of Frozen Remains. Its name is whispered in legends as a bringer of eternal winters. Its hollow hockets glow with an intense blue light as it fixes its gaze on the only student still capable of moving. The creature looks as ancient as the mountain itself. Terrified, the teammate scrambles away, his boots slipping on the frozen ground. He knows he can't possibly handle a monster of this rank alone. He barely makes it a few yards before the summit itself seems to turn against him. He keeps running, his breath coming in ragged, desperate gasps. An ice crystal shard hurtled forward, tearing clean through his lower leg in a spray of blood. The sound of bone shattering was drowned out by the howling wind. He hits the ground hard, a pained scream escaping his lips. He looks back at the monster, realizing he's been pinned to the spot like an insect. The skeletal lord hovers closer, its hand glowing with a malevolent blue energy. It looks down at the boy with what can only be described as a mocking amusement. The teammate's wristband blinks a warning red, reporting a through-and-through wound. The system calmly asks if he wishes to abandon the exam and be rescued. He let out a defiant roar of refusal, his eyes suddenly becoming sharp and unusually clear. He knew he had to thaw out Si Chen before it was too late for both of them. Channeling every ounce of mana he has left, he activates the source of purification on the ice block holding Si Chen. He prays that it will be enough to break the spell. The Bone King responded instantly, sending another ice spike that pierced through the teammate's arm. He screamed in agony, his vision blurring from the pain. He collapses into the snow, his strength failing him as the system coldly reports that the purification attempt has failed. It seems like the end for the entire team. The monster hovers over its broken prey, its skeletal jaw rattling in what sounds like a victory laugh. It looks like it's savoring the moment of their total defeat. It gathers its magic once more, forming dozens of smaller ice bone spikes around its body. The creature is preparing to finish the job once and for all. Slumped in the snow, his heart rate spiking and his body covered in wounds, the teammate looks like a ghost of himself. The freezing wind threatens to carry away his last bit of hope. The wristband's question repeats, a robotic invitation to give up and escape the suffering. It's a tempting offer for someone who has already given everything. Abandon it? His eyes flared with a desperate, fierce fire behind his cracked glasses. He gritted his teeth, his expression twisting into one of pure, unadulterated stubbornness. He thinks back on every time he let fear win, every time he ran away and left himself behind. He's tired of being the one who always gets left in the dust. He remembers the bullying, the laughter, and the years of being treated as nothing more than a burden. The memories burn hotter than the freezing cold around him. He thinks of all the times he was too weak to stand up for himself or those he cared about. He refuses to let this be another one of those moments. He remembers his team and the promise they made to change their fates together. They fought too hard to make it this far just to fail now. I absolutely won't just give up like this, he screams, his voice cracking with the strain. His resolve is harder than the ice that's trying to kill him. With a final, agonizing effort, he lunges forward and slams his hand against Si Chen's icy prison. He ignores the spikes in his body as he pours the last of his mana into the skill. Source of purification, he bellows as a blinding blue light erupts from his palm. The sheer power of his will begins to shake the entire summit. Behind Ma Long, the Bone King raised its hand, commanding a volley of ice crystals that hurtled forward with ear-piercing shrieks. Beneath his palm, the thick ice holding Si Chen captive begins to hum and crackle with a sudden surge of internal power. The glowing blue light of the purification spell fights back against the monster's freezing curse. With the ice shards closing in, just inches away from making him log out of life, Ma Long grit his teeth and poured every last drop of mana into his palms to shatter the ice sealing Si Chen. Ma Long's eyes clamped shut as he let out a guttural scream, his glasses fogged over by the extreme cold and sheer exhaustion. He was determined to push past everything to break the weakling Jinx, giving his all for his ideals and his friends in this very moment. Deep within the darkness of the broken ice, Si Chen's eyes snap open, burning with a fierce and predatory golden light. The air around him seems to vibrate with a sudden, overwhelming pressure. A massive shockwave of blue mana and ice debris erupts from the center, blowing back the surrounding snow as Si Chen fully awakens. The sheer force of his awakening clears a wide circle on the mountain peak. The Bone King's skeletal jaw hangs open, its glowing blue sockets flickering with what can only be described as shock. It clearly did not expect its prey to break free so violently. Moving with blinding speed, Si Chen catches his falling teammate, his silhouette wreathed in a strange, golden-hued energy. He stabilizes the injured boy before the frost can claim him. The teammate manages a weak smile, looking up at his leader through the haze of his exhaustion and relief. He whispers that Si Chen managed to break the control all on his own. Si Chen looks down with calm, red eyes, his voice steady as he asks if the other boy's injuries are life-threatening. The teammate reassures him, nodding that the bleeding has stopped for now. Shivering and clutching his side, the teammate warns him about the monster, a rank C cloud-type lord known as the Bone King of frozen remains. He stresses that they cannot let it freeze them again. Si Chen listens in silence, his expression hard and serious as he turns his gaze toward the skeletal monarch. A low hum of power begins to emanate from his body once more. Infuriated by the interruption, the Bone King conjures a massive sphere of jagged ice above its head, the devastating Ice Burst Bomb. The spell crackles with an intense, freezing mana. The colossal orb of frozen energy looms over the summit like a small, pale moon, casting a deep and chilling shadow over the two survivors. Si Chen looks up, seemingly unbothered by the scale of the attack. The monster's skull splits into a wide, maniacal grin as it lets out a rattling laugh. It prepares to unleash the full, crushing weight of its magic to end the exam then and for all. Terror returns to the teammate's face. He shouts that the attack is too large and fast for them to possibly evade in their current state. He braces himself for the inevitable impact. With a flick of the Bone King's wrist, the Ice Burst Bomb hurtles toward the ground, accelerating with terrifying speed. It leaves a trail of frost in its wake as it screams through the air. A blinding flash of white light consumes the entire peak as the explosive spell impacts the center of the mountain. The sound of the explosion is deafening, shaking the very foundations of the dungeon. The Bone King floats calmly in the aftermath, its tattered robes fluttering in the freezing wind as it stares down at the smoke-filled crater. It waits for the dust to settle, certain of its victory. Suddenly, the creature's glowing blue sockets flare. It senses a presence within the wreckage that should have been extinguished. It leans forward, its skeletal hand trembling slightly. Si Chen stands perfectly still in the center of the blast zone, his body encased in a shimmering blue aura. He appears completely unharmed, having absorbed the elemental essence of the attack. A partial skeletal mask has formed over his face, and his status screen reveals he has attained a frost body. He is now a cloud warrior, immune to the very cold that once trapped him. The Bone King shrieks in a mix of fury and confusion, its mouth agape as it witnesses its own elemental mastery being turned against it. The air around Si Chen begins to boil with conflicting energies. From the sidelines, the teammate watches in utter disbelief, confused by the strange, icy power emanating from a teammate he thought was a Volt assassin. He can't wrap his head around what he's seeing. He wonders aloud if Si Chen is one of the legendary dual-class awakened, a 1 in 10,000 individual capable of holding two distinct roles at once. The realization leaves him speechless. Si Chen looks over his shoulder, the bone-white mask giving him an increasingly demonic appearance amidst the swirling snow. His red and blue eyes pierce through the haze of the battle. He apologizes for his miscalculation, admitting he shouldn't have put the three of them in such a dangerous position. A class switching in progress loading bar appears before him. His clenched fist begins to glow with a dark, purplish fire as he declares that the monster's reign ends here. The icy blue aura of the frost body is quickly being replaced by a more sinister heat. A system notification confirms that the class switch is finished. The environment itself seems to recoil from the sudden spike in dark, necrotic mana emanating from the protagonist. Si Chen stands fully transformed into the Purgatory Rakshasa, wielding a massive scythe that pulses with pink and purple energy. He has reached level 17, and his intent to kill is palpable as he stares down the Bone King. Si Chen stands amidst swirling energy, apologizing to his team for the danger his misjudgment caused. A class change loading bar appears before him as he prepares to escalate his power. His eyes glow with a sharp blue light. He declares that the struggle ends now. The system confirms the process is complete. The class change is finished. Si Chen emerges in his abyssal fiend form, clutching a massive, glowing energy blade. He promises to finish the fight in an instant. The glasses-wearing teammate can only stare, his jaw dropping in absolute disbelief at the transformation. Normally, an awakener is limited to a single class throughout their entire life. There's only a 1 in 10 million chance that someone can awaken a second. These rare individuals are known as dual-classers. Once discovered, these talents are immediately hunted and recruited by every major guild in the world. The teammate screams in shock, realizing that Si Chen isn't just strong, he's something else entirely. 1 class, Lightning Assassin. Si Chen's eyes burn with golden energy. 2 classes, Abyssal Fiend. His form shifts as blue energy pulses around him. But the truth is even more impossible. He has 3. He grips his giant blade as strength and stamina stats skyrocket. Each one of his classes is terrifyingly powerful on its own. Now, he's hitting his maximum limits. His eyes glow bright as his stats max out, prepared for a final strike. A massive blast of blue energy erupts from his position. Si Chen launches himself into the air, a streak of light aiming straight for the massive boss. His teammate watches, frozen in awe of the raw power on display. The Bone King's skull rattles as Si Chen's blade descends with overwhelming force. The skill triple calamity, overload mode, is activated, tearing through the air. Si Chen becomes a dark silhouette against a blinding flash of pink and white light. Everything else vanishes. The skeletal lord is obliterated, its massive crown falling into the snow. The giant sword dissipates as Si Chen kneels in the center of the impact crater. He's finished. Experience points flood in, pushing Si Chen to level 17. He secures a victory and loots the frostbone skewers. The glasses-wearing teammate approaches the skull, stammering about how Si Chen just one-shotted a C-rank lord like it was nothing. Si Chen looks back casually, asking if the guy still has enough energy to defrost the rest of their squad. Realization hits him like a truck. He'd completely forgotten about Xiang Zhuo and Xiang Yu. He scrambles toward the ice blocks. With his teammates busy, Si Chen stands over the remains. The system prompt for devour flickers into existence. He reaches out a hand, his red eyes glowing as a strange light begins to hum from his palm. Wisps of spectral energy are sucked into him as the devouring process loads. A final crackle of lightning surges around his fist as he clenches it tight. The process is a success. He receives the Frostbound Lick King card, granting him the Cloud Mage class. Si Chen notes that this is the first time he's gained a new class outside of the Dream Realm. He stands silently in the snow, looking completely unfazed by his growing arsenal. He realizes the Robocam was likely frozen by the Arctic Nova earlier, so his secret should still be safe from any onlookers. In the distance, his teammate is hard at work using his powers to free their frozen allies while the broken drone lies nearby. A sudden buzzing sound draws Si Chen's attention as a system glitch effect appears over his chest. His Lightning Assassin class reaches 100%, and he's awarded a star to allocate to his stats. The reward is unexpected, leaving Si Chen momentarily confused by the floating icons. Meanwhile, in the Gloomven Grotto, Team Gong Ting is facing a very different struggle. Someone takes a heavy hit. They're up against a giant man-eater, a D-rank flower mage boss that's proving to be more than they expected. One of the team members struggles to maintain his magical chains, shouting that he can't hold the monster back much longer. An archer teammate fires off a lightning arrow, gritting his teeth as he complains about how tanky the creature is. The archer on Gong Ting's team fires a bolt of lightning at the massive plant monster, but it barely leaves a scratch on its thick hide. The flower mage lashes out with a giant vine, slamming into the ground with enough force to send the team scattering. One teammate is pinned down, gasping that they never faced anything this powerful during their training sessions. He looks up in desperation, declaring that Gong Ting is the only one who can save them now. The massive beast looms over the cavern as Gong Ting stands his ground, gathering a massive amount of energy. Magic circles manifest around him, his stats surging as stamina, strength, and elemental power hit their peak. His eyes glow a menacing red. He grips his blade, deciding that he's built up more than enough power to end this. Gong Ting blurs into motion, a streak of white light cutting through the dark cavern in a high-speed dash. With a single fluid strike, he severs the monster's neck mid-lunge, sparks flying from the impact. He roars a command for the beast to split apart as he delivers a final, crushing blow. A blinding explosion of energy consumes the remains of the flower mage as the skill, Sorrow Blade Burst activates. The cavern is bathed in fire and light, obliterating everything in its path. His teammates erupt in cheers, praising their president as an absolute legend. An announcement rings out. Team Gong Ting has cleared the D-rank dungeon in a record 35 minutes. Gong Ting stands amidst the burning ruins, while his teammates scoff at the mere thought of anyone being able to beat their record time. He celebrates a perfect score of 150 points, certain they've just set an unbreakable school record. Gong Ting slides his sword back into its sheath, his arrogance on full display as he walks away from the wreckage. They head for the exit, convinced that any other students who haven't finished must be struggling in the lower-tier caves. Arriving at the results hall, the team laughs, assuming anyone already there must have forfeited early. They walk past other students who look completely broken and traumatized by their own assessments. One girl is left in tears, unable to shake the horror of the monsters she encountered. Gong Ting's lackeys strode into the waiting area with their heads held high, completely ignoring the misery of those around them. They smirked, basking in the thrill of sitting at the top of the leaderboard. Suddenly, they spotted Si Chen's group huddled together under blankets, and assumed they had chickened out and fled. Si Chen looks on with a cold, piercing gaze, completely unimpressed by the spectacle. Gong Cheng stepped forward to mock them, asking why they couldn't even finish the assessment after acting so tough. Gong Ting calls out to his brother, telling him to back off and come back to the group. Gong Ting knew that letting this younger brother keep his mouth shut was the only way to save face, especially now that he'd spotted a group of high-profile guests entering the hall. A man in a gray suit begins to clap, his eyes fixed on the gathered students. Carl Cavendish steps forward, praising the truly outstanding performance he witnessed today. The crowd parts as the high-ranking officials walk down the center of the hall, their presence commanding silence. The students whisper in awe, recognizing the man at the pinnacle of world power walking among them. Gong Cheng's excitement builds as the officials walk directly toward their group, expecting praise. Carl doesn't even spare a glance at the two brothers as he continues past them. He stops right in front of Si Chen, his eyes locking onto the young man. The vice chairman announces the real record: a D-rank cave cleared in a staggering 21 minutes. He smiles at Si Chen, calling the feat truly brilliant even for a professional raid team. Gong Cheng's face twists into a mask of pure shock, his jaw dropping as the announcement sinks in. Si Chen remains silent, but his teammates lean in with smug smiles as the tables turn. Si Chen studies the man, recognizing Carl Cavendish as the second most powerful figure in the world. Carl addresses Si Chen by name, pleased that his trip turned out to be worthwhile after all. He offhandedly mentions that Gong Ting also performed quite well, before focusing back on the real star. Gong Lin smiles and bows slightly, thanking Carl Cavendish for the flattering words about his son's performance. He remains silent for a moment, his eyes hidden behind his glasses as he watches the students in the hall. Carl Cavendish decides it's time to conclude his visit, nodding that the hour is getting late. Carl walks alongside the principal, teasing the old man for hitting the jackpot with 2 rare prodigies in a single year. Gong Xuan wipes a bead of sweat from his forehead as he steps forward to announce the official assessment results. He declares that since there is a tie for a perfect score, both teams are the championship winners and eligible for the Empire Guild. Si Chen's teammates go wild with excitement, jumping and cheering at the realization that they've actually made it. Gong Ting's team celebrates their guaranteed future at the top, though Gong Ting himself remains brooding and silent in the foreground. Gong Xuan adds that the captains will receive management positions and split the $1 million MVP prize money equally. A tense visual silence falls over the hall as the two rivals lock eyes from across the room. Si Chen suddenly realized that with the Gong family's shitty decision, the prize money would be split in half. He crunched his numbers, worrying that he wouldn't be able to pay off his debt to Than Kai with only half the reward. Gong Tin spoke up first to break the tension, as even an arrogant man like him couldn't stomach this result. He stepped forward and declared that there could only be one true champion. He stares intensely at Si Chen, demanding a one-on-one tiebreaker match to settle the score once and for all. Gong Xuan and the other students look on in absolute shock at the sudden, bold challenge. The high-ranking officials, including Carl Cavendish and the principal, stop in their tracks to watch the drama unfold. Gong Xuan tries to intervene, arguing that the assessment is officially over and the tie is a perfect result. Over here, Si Chen spoke up, cutting through Gong Xuan's whispering with a direct question about the winner's reward. He looks back with a flat, unreadable expression, asking if the winner of the duel gets to keep the entire million. Gong Xuan is left speechless by Si Chen's blunt and immediate focus on the money. Gong Ting smirks, telling Si Chen that if he has the skill to beat him, then he can take every cent of the prize. Carl Cavendish looks on with a fascinated smile, finding the escalation of the rivalry to be highly entertaining. The two students stand alone in the center of the hall, the rest of the world fading into the background as they prepare to fight. Si Chen accepts the terms, staring down Gong Ting and asking exactly how they are going to settle this. Inside a luxurious office, Qingzhai sits back on a plush green sofa. He admits he only expected Si Chen to take first place, not to completely shatter every record with a perfect score. Leaning forward with a calculating smile, the businessman tells the boy he made a very wise decision. He offers to waive the entire 1.5 million debt, considering it an angel investment in Si Chen's potential. Si Chen sits across from him, looking down silently at the cup of tea in his hands. He looks up with a cold, unwavering gaze, flatly refusing the offer. He insists that a debt is a debt, and he will pay back every cent. The room is quiet as Si Chen states he came here to settle two specific things. First, he asks for a 1-week extension on the repayment deadline. He explains that because the graduation assessment ended in a tie, He's short 500,000 credits. He reveals his plan to face Gong Ting in a one-on-one tiebreaker match a week from now. The duel is set to take place in a dangerous wild devil's cave outside the school. Qingzhai's calm facade slips, his eyes wide with disbelief. He can't believe two mere students are daring to enter a place as lethal as a wild devil's cave. Si Chen remains perfectly composed, telling him not to worry. Once he wins the match in a week, he'll have the rest of the money ready. He even offers to hand over all the materials he harvests from the cave as interest for the week's extension. Qingzhai is deeply impressed. Nodding, the boy shows no fear and cares only about his business interests. He finds Si Chen's lack of hesitation truly extraordinary. Si Chen sets his glass down firmly. He mentions there is one more thing, something even more important than the debt. His expression sharpens, his red eyes fixed on the man across from him. Qingzhai watches him carefully, waiting for the demand. Si Chen speaks with a cold authority that doesn't match his age. A bead of sweat rolls down Qingzhai's face as the weight of the boy's request sinks in. Si Chen continues his proposition, giving the businessman no room to argue. Qingzhai stands up suddenly, his eyes wide with shock. He's left completely speechless by the audacity of what he's just heard. The scene shifts to the afternoon of June 17th at Kingshui Middle School. Si Yun walks out of the school gates, stretching her arms and cheering with relief. Final exams are finally over, and summer vacation has officially begun. She checks her phone as she walks, a small, hopeful smile appearing on her face. A realization hits her, and her expression softens as she stops in her tracks. Her phone's wallpaper shows a happy photo of her and Si Chen together. She remembers that today is the day of her brother's graduation assessment. She thinks back to 4 years ago. A younger Si Chen was beaming with joy, holding up an admission letter for the National Awakener University. A much younger Si Yun looked up at him with sparkling eyes, thrilled that her brother was finally going to be an Awakener, just like their parents. Si Chen held her tight, promising to join a top guild and make enough money to give her a better life. He was so full of hope back then, determined to uncover the truth about their parents' disappearance. Si Yun cheered him on with everything she had, fully believing her brother was the absolute best. But the memory turns bitter. Not too long ago, she saw him sitting in the shadows at the table, crushed by the fact that he still hadn't awakened. Seeing him so broken, she tried to reassure him that everything would be okay. Si Chen forced a smile for her, trying to hide the pain of being the only one in his class who failed to awaken. Back in the present, she looks at the date on her phone. She knows how hard he worked, and she hates that he had to suffer through that loneliness while everyone else moved on. She sighs, her heart aching for the brother who always tried so hard just for her sake. Suddenly, a girl runs up and startles her out of her thoughts. The classmate excitedly asks if she's heard that the National Awakener University produced 2 incredible geniuses this year. She rambles on about how both of them led their teams to perfect scores, and were personally praised by the vice chairman of the Guild Alliance. The friend then asks if Si Yun's brother goes to that school. Si Yun can only give an awkward, sweat-dropped response, clearly not realizing her brother is one of those geniuses. A pink-haired student named Jin Duozin suddenly leans in with a charming smile, greeting Si Yun. Jin Duozin, the school idol, casually mentions he's booked a private penthouse room for a celebratory dinner tonight. He asks if she's free at 8 p.m., flashing a confident grin. Si Yun's friend is completely shocked, gasping and wondering how she could possibly know the most popular boy in school. Si Yun just stands there in silence, looking deeply uncomfortable. Without saying a word, Si Yun suddenly bolts, running away as fast as she can. Jin Duozin is left leaning against the wall, watching her leave with a confused expression. Si Yun is walking so fast, she doesn't even notice Jin Duozin calling out to her from behind. She's lost in thought, remembering how her brother's classmates were making the news for their perfect scores, while her brother supposedly couldn't even manage to awaken. Her heart breaks thinking about him failing, picturing him as a small, crying boy in her mind, as she runs home with tears in her eyes. She wipes her face and resolves to hurry home, wanting to cook a massive feast to cheer Si Chen up after such a hard day. The sun sets on June 17th, and lights begin to flicker on in their rented apartment building as night falls. Inside, the table is covered with an incredible sukiyaki hot pot, steaming and filled with premium ingredients. Si Chen is stunned by the sight, asking his sister how on earth she found the time to prepare all of this food. They sit down together, and Si Chen's face lights up at the smell of the meal. Si Yun watches him silently, her expression a mix of pity and concern. In the background, the evening news begins with a report on the successful graduation combat assessment at Dongxin National Awakener University. Si Chen starts eating happily, as the news anchor mentions that Vice Chairman Carl Cavendish was there in person to interact with the students. Si Chen watches him, convinced he's just putting on a brave face to avoid worrying her after failing his assessment. The broadcast continues, reporting a highly rare dual champion outcome and the discovery of twin geniuses. On the TV, Carl Cavendish is seen praising the assessment to the media, specifically singling out one team leader for praise. The reporter's voice echoes through the room as she says the name, student Si Chen. The shock hits Si Chen like a physical blow, and her bowl and chopsticks slip from her hands in slow motion. Si Yun's eyes are wide with shock, sweat beads forming on her brow as she repeats the name in her head. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit room, a thick black whip lies coiled on the floor next to splatters of blood. A cold voice says the stage was set for a specific person. Gong Lin stands before a massive aquarium, whip in hand. He turns toward a wounded man, saying he even invited an audience to witness the failure. Gong Lin's face is cold and filled with disappointment as he scolds the person before him for botching the performance. Gong Ting is standing there, shirtless and covered in red scratches, his breath coming in ragged gasps as his father yells that he lost to some no-name brat. Leaning in close, Gong Lin tells his son that from now on, he won't be making any of his own decisions. Gong Ting hangs his head, sweating and frustrated, as his father looms over him and mentions a combat tiebreaker in a week. Gong Lin's eyes are sharp behind his glasses, as he declares that first place can only belong to the Gong family, by any means necessary. Back on the TV, the news continues to report on the rare twin prodigies that have emerged. Carl Cavendish is back on screen, repeating his high praise for the student who led their team to a perfect score. Si Chen stood frozen, her eyes glued to the TV as the name Si Chen echoed in her ears. Suddenly, she stands up so fast that her chair almost flies back, making a loud swoosh. She stares at the TV with an expression of pure, unadulterated shock. A perfect score? Her brother, the vice chairman on the screen, says the performance was impressive and hopes the country continues to produce such talent. Si Chen points a trembling finger at the TV and looks at her brother, asking if that Si Chen they just mentioned is actually him. Si Chen looks up calmly, his mouth full of rice, and just gives a casual, "Yeah. What about it?" as if it's nothing special. The shock finally breaks Si Chen, and her spoon hits the floor with a loud smash. Outside, a massive bolt of lightning cracks across the sky, echoing the explosion of news inside the apartment. Si Chen is speechless, her eyes bulging, her own flesh and blood. A genius in the graduation exam. She explodes with excitement, shouting that he got a personal shout-out from the vice chairman of the Guild Alliance. Si Chen just sits there quietly, completely unaffected by her outburst as they continue their dinner. After the initial shock wears off, Si Yun's eyes well up with tears again, but this time they are tears of joy. She leans her head on her hand, a soft, proud smile on her face as she tells him he actually went and did it. Si Chen stops eating for a moment, looking at his sister with a slightly surprised expression. Later that night, premium Wagyu beef is stabbed with a toothpick in a different luxury setting. Carl Cavendish, now in a casual red shirt, is enjoying his high-end dinner, thinking that nothing beats premium Wagyu. He looks off to the side with a knowing smile, asking someone how things are looking on their end. In a quiet, upscale restaurant, Kite sits with her eyes closed, listening to the ambient noise. She wears a beige trench coat over a high-collared sweater. Across the table, she meets with Carl Cavendish, sliding a sleek tablet across the table to him. She reports that this is the extent of the information they've managed to compile so far. On the table lies a black, top-secret envelope. Inside, documents labeled the Glutton reveal that the subject hasn't left even a single footprint over the past year. The file contains cryptic notes about the Glutton, suggesting that the entity may have already figured out that they are watching. Carl Cavendish leans back, looking at the file with a neutral expression. He acknowledges her hard work and tells her to eat her meal first. Kite doesn't touch her food yet, instead leaning in to mention that there is one more thing she needs to report. She reveals that she's had her eye on someone suspicious lately, someone who recently crossed paths with Carl. Carl raises an eyebrow, his interest piqued. Kite explains that the speed at which this individual's abilities are increasing is completely off the charts, far beyond what should be possible. Meanwhile, deep within the mental realm of Dreadspire, a massive, twisted tower pulses with an eerie red glow against the dark sky. Si Chen stands in the desolate white wasteland of the tower's first floor. He's been grinding here for 2 weeks, reaching level 17 and nearly wiping out every monster on the level. His status window displays his growth, showing massive boosts to his strength and speed. He has now fully adapted to the punishing 10x gravity environment. A system notification announces a class proficiency increase. His Lightning Assassin class has earned its first star, indicating a new level of mastery. Standing before his array of class cards, Si Chen realizes that none of them have reached their hit ceiling yet. He decides to allocate the newly earned star directly into his most critical attribute for an assassin: speed. The speed stat on his status screen flares with golden light as it jumps to 740. At this level, his speed should be sitting at an A-rank assassin level. Si Chen surveys the field as 4 starry purple panthers, the stellar lionesses, prowl the white slopes around him. The monsters growl and bare their teeth, their fur shimmering like a galaxy under the dark sky. Watching from a higher ridge is the Lion King Overlord, a massive beast with a glowing purple mane. Si Chen admits he still can't land a single hit on this floor's boss. 2 of the lionesses suddenly lunge at him from different angles, their jaws wide as they leap through the air. Si Chen remains calm, his eyes glowing with intensity as he activates his specialized skill, Flash God. With a burst of yellow lightning, he blurs across the battlefield, leaving a jagged trail behind as he weaves between the attacking beasts. He closes the distance in an instant, charging his hand with lightning to strike the Lion King Overlord directly. Just as his blow is about to land, the massive lion blinks out of existence with a sharp swish. The Overlord reappears instantly on a distant ridge, standing beside whichever lioness is currently farthest from Si Chen. The monsters are constantly shifting their positions to adapt on the fly, but their core formation never changes. Si Chen stops to analyze the battlefield. 2 lionesses are always assigned to keep him busy at close range, while 2 others wait on standby. Through it all, the Lion King Overlord maintains the maximum possible distance, refusing to engage him directly and watching from afar. Si Chen narrows his eyes, frustrated by the Overlord's strategy of letting everyone else do the dirty work. He stares at the majestic purple beast, wondering what kind of class or ability it truly possesses to be so elusive. Another lioness charges at him from the side, its form a blur of starry purple energy and bared teeth. Si Chen doesn't look away, instead thrusting his lightning-charged hand out to meet the beast's lunging attack. His fist connects with the monster's face with a heavy thud, sending a shockwave of electricity through its body. But his slash still sliced through nothing but empty space. He realized they were using that same old trick again to toy with him. Just as Si Chen was about to launch his counterattack, the lioness vanished into a dark portal, disappearing from his sight in a split second. She instantly pops back up right beside the Lion King Overlord on the high ground, safe from his reach. The moment Si Chen stops moving, another lioness charges in to bait him into swinging his lightning blade again. Electricity crackles violently around Si Chen's body as he gathers more power, his hair standing on end from the intensity. He launches into a series of lightning-fast slashes, his trails weaving a complex web of purple and yellow energy across the white terrain. From an overhead view, the battlefield is a mess of portals and moving shadows. Si Chen notes that their coordination is so iron-tight it's almost beautiful. The high-speed chase continues across the cratered landscape, with the panther-like monsters constantly teleporting to stay out of reach. One of the lionesses swipes a claw at Si Chen's head, but he parries the attack with his own lightning-infused fist. He lashes out with a powerful lightning blade, but his target once again vanishes into thin air before the blow can connect. The panther-like monsters continue to reposition themselves across the snowy slopes, keeping a strategic distance from their target. Their forms flicker with starry energy as they move. Si Chen prepares for another strike, his eyes fixed on the nearest beast as it lunges through the air. He readies himself to attack again, refusing to let the pack overwhelm him. With a sudden burst of speed, Si Chen charges forward, his movement leaving a jagged trail of golden light. He aims a decisive blow at the monster, only for it to vanish once more into a dark portal. The cycle continues as the panthers leap and teleport in an endless loop, slowly grinding Si Chen's stamina down. He stands alone on the white field, surrounded by shadows that refuse to stay still. Si Chen pants heavily, sweat dripping down his face as he realizes the futility of his current approach. His brow is furrowed in concentration, his eyes glowing with a sharp, yellow light as he stares down his elusive foes. The Lion King Overlord watches from the ridge, its massive purple form radiating an aura of calm superiority. Si Chen grows frustrated, feeling as though the beast is literally playing with him. A realization strikes Si Chen as he pauses to reconsider his tactics. He wonders why he is even trying to beat these monsters at their own high-speed game. As a panther lunges toward him with a sharp swish, Si Chen leaps high into the air, narrowly avoiding its glowing claws. He decides it's time to change his strategy completely. In midair, a system notification appears before him as he initiates a class change. Brilliant blue energy erupts from his body, swirling around him as the interface begins loading. Si Chen decides that if the monsters won't meet him head-on, then he will simply force the engagement. His form begins to shift as ice shards crystallize in the air around him. He vows to pull out his mage class and tear them all apart from long range. His eyes turn a piercing icy blue as the transformation nears completion. The system confirms that the class switch is complete. The golden interface fades, replaced by a chilling aura that freezes the moisture in the surrounding air. Si Chen stands fully transformed into the Frostbone King, his body adorned with sharp, icy armor and skeletal antlers. Large, jagged icicles float around him, ready to be launched at his targets. The Frostbone King class card displays its impressive stats, specializing in elemental power and luck. It lists powerful skills like Frost Spike and Frost Bomb, signaling a major shift in the battle's dynamic. Si Chen initiates a class switch, suspended in a burst of blinding blue light as a loading bar appears above him. He's not just adapting, he's completely resetting the board. Shards of ice begin to crystallize in the air around him. If the enemy won't meet him head-on, he's more than happy to change the rules of the game and strike from a distance. His eyes turn a cold, glowing blue as the transformation finishes. He's pulling out his mage class to start tearing the pack apart from long range, where they can't even touch him. The switch is complete, and he stands as the Frostbone King, a level 17 cloud mage clad in jagged ice armor. The sheer cold radiating from him turns the air into a mist of frost. The system displays his new stat card, showing off high speed and mental stats. This form is built for tactical destruction, utilizing specialized Frost Spike and Frost Blast skills. He hovers high above the arena, unleashing a barrage of razor-sharp ice blades. A massive boom echoes through the chamber as the attack tears through the air toward its targets. The ice shards rain down on the lions below like deadly needles. They scramble to dodge the sudden hailstorm, but there's absolutely nowhere left to hide on the open floor. Explosions of frost erupt across the ground, sending freezing shockwaves through the entire battlefield. The impact is so violent it creates a localized blizzard that blinds the remaining beasts. Si Chen watches from above with a calm, analytical gaze. He knows the secret to winning. Mages might be fragile up close, but at this range, they own the entire battlefield. The Lion King Lord roars in pain as the ice storm clips its hide. It glares up at its attacker, frustrated by a fight it can't even hope to reach. A purple energy discharge sizzles on the ground where the ice hit. The power behind Si Chen's spells is so intense it's actually scorching the floor of the tower. The boss and its minions start retreating toward a dark portal. They've finally realized they can't survive an open fight against a long-range specialist who has them pinned down. Portals open all over the arena as the lions try to reposition, but the ground is already glowing with the marks of the previous bombardment. There's a pattern to their movement that he's already exploited. Si Chen raises his ice-covered hand, his fingers starting to curl in a crushing motion. He's been hurting them this whole time, forcing the entire pack right into his kill zone. The Lion King freezes up, its eyes wide with shock as it realizes it's walked straight into a trap. A single bead of sweat rolls down its fur as the mana in the air thickens. He summons a giant, glowing sphere of ice energy directly above the enemy. This is the Frost Blast Bomb, and it looms over the pack like a miniature frozen moon. The sphere is massive, trapping the panicked lions with absolutely nowhere left to run. Multiple shockwaves are already hammering the area as the spell begins its final phase. His eyes narrow through the frosty air as he prepares to detonate. He's made sure there isn't a single corner left in the arena for them to hide in. The Lion King lets out one last, desperate roar as the bomb starts to collapse inward. It knows exactly what's coming, but it can't move fast enough to escape. The sphere detonates, unleashing a blinding explosion of blue and white light that consumes everything in its path. The tower floor shakes under the sheer weight of the impact. A massive shockwave slams through the arena, turning everything white. The force of the blast is heavy enough to momentarily clear the entire battlefield of any visible movement. When the light fades, the lions are left frozen solid in jagged pillars of ice. Cracks are already spiderwebbing across their bodies as the structural integrity of the ice fails. Si Chen doesn't miss a beat and switches classes again, transforming into his level 17 infernal Rakshasa form. Dark, Demonic energy swirls around him as he prepares to deliver the final strike. With blue markings glowing under his eye and his hair standing on end, he looks down at his frozen prey. The first floor of the Dreadspire is about to be officially cleared. He glares at the frozen boss, baring his teeth in a savage grin. For these creatures, the fight is over, and there's no coming back from what's next. A vertical beam of purple light slams down from above, crushing the frozen lion into the ground. This is the triple cataclysm in crushing mode, leaving nothing but dust in its wake. Si Chen swings his weapon with a powerful swoosh, sending out waves of dark purple energy. The sheer force of the move clears away the last of the frozen debris and frozen corpses. The battlefield falls silent as the ice fragments finally settle on the floor. Si Chen stands tall in the center of the destruction, his weapon still glowing with residual energy. The boss's spirit begins to fade, dissolving into wisps of black smoke as its physical form vanishes. It's a quiet end for a creature that commanded a pride of hunters. The smoke swirls and disappears into the air with a soft whoosh. The main threat of the first floor has been neutralized, and the way forward is finally clear. Si Chen walks toward the site of the impact, his cape fluttering behind him. The frozen arena he's created is now a graveyard of ice and purple mana. His level shoots up to 24 in a massive jump, and he scores some serious loot. He's earned 4 Phantomane bones and a rare Phantomane heart from the victory. He looks down at the remains of the purple lion. The system confirms what he already knew. The body is ready to be devoured for its power. He stands over the glowing purple core, holding it up as it buzzes with residual energy. The light reflects off his chest as he prepares to analyze the prize he just fought for. He focuses his energy on the heart, demanding it reveal its secrets. He needs to know exactly what kind of class could hide behind its beasts so effectively. The core starts to smoke as it reacts to his mana, releasing a strange, purple vapor. The buzzing sound gets louder as the system begins the extraction process. Dark energy swirls around his hand, while the core continues to pulse and buzz. He's digging deep into the records left behind by the boss's essence. He clenches his fist, the red glow of the heart flaring up between his fingers. He's not just taking the loot, he's taking the boss's very identity and skills. A class card appears, revealing that the Lion King was actually a stellar tamer. It's got specialized skills like Stellar Pact and Stellar Warp, explaining its mastery over beasts. Si Chen stares at the card, surprised to encounter a class he's never seen before. The concept of a tamer adds a whole new dimension to his growing arsenal. It all makes sense now. The boss wouldn't engage him directly because its own stats were trash. It was a classic summoner, letting its contracted beasts do all the heavy lifting. He looks back at the portals the lions used during the fight. They weren't just random jumps, but specialized tamming skills used to protect the master while the pets fought his battles. Si Chen analyzes the tamer skills he just acquired. The teleportation ability, Stellar Warp, stands out as a genuinely powerful tool for battlefield control. He realizes that forming a contract requires more than just a gesture. It hinges on intimidation and a high level of deterrence. He knows he'll have to go in hard to secure a beast of his own. The prospect of forced beast contracting is interesting, even if it relies on fear. He continues reviewing the requirements, noting that a master's death means the end for their contracted beast as well. As the space around him shifts with a powerful whoosh, Si Chen senses a change in the tower's atmosphere. The icy arena is gone, replaced by a strange, shimmering light. He finds himself standing in a vast, desolate desert. This, he realizes, is what the first floor of the Dreadspire is actually supposed to look like without the boss's influence. Skeletal remains litter the dunes under a pale sky. He surveys the absolute wasteland, wondering what could have caused such utter devastation in this place. In the distance, a beam of orange light pierces the sky with a sharp clack. Si Chen watches as the environment continues to react to the floor being clear. A massive pillar of fire and energy erupts from the ground, swirling into a vortex. The door to the second floor has finally opened, marking his progress deeper into the tower. Through the darkness, a pair of glowing pink eyes stare back with a low growl. Something is still lingering in the shadows of the first floor, even after the boss's defeat. Si Chen turns his head sharply at the sound of the growl. He remains on high alert, ready to react to whatever is hiding among the bones. He spots a small form tucked away inside a massive ribcage in the sand. A low, continuous grrr echoes from the shadows of the skeleton. A tiny, fluffy lion cub with glowing pink eyes and purple chains stands its ground. It lets out a defiant roar, showing teeth that are far from intimidating given its size. Si Chen looks down at the little creature with a surprised expression. He didn't expect to find a survivor tucked away in the aftermath of the battle. He stands before the ribcage, lightning crackling around his hand. He notes that this little one is the very last standing in the entire area. He realizes this wasn't one of the Lion King's contracted beasts, or it would have died along with its master. The cub is an independent entity that was trapped here all along. Looking closer, he sees glowing stellar chains wrapped tightly around the cub. He wonders if the Phantomane Lion King was the one who locked it in this cage. The lightning around Si Chen intensifies as he narrows his eyes. He's making a decision about what to do with this tiny prisoner. The cub's eyes widen in fear and shock as the energy surges around it. It cowers slightly, bracing for what it thinks is another attack. Si Chen strikes with a burst of energy, but not at the cub. He shatters the stellar chains, sending purple fragments flying through the air as the cub is knocked back by the force. The cub tumbles across the sand with a plop, the heavy chains finally falling away. It lies there for a moment, stunned by the sudden turn of events. Si Chen stands over it, telling the cub he's giving it back its freedom. He looks down with a calm, almost gentle gaze as the dust settles around them. He acknowledges that this wasteland was once the cub's home. He watches as the small lion shakes off the last of the exhaustion and looks up at him. Si Chen gives a slight, knowing smile. He talks about the pain of watching everyone you know die and seeing everything you love destroyed. He looks the cub in the eye, telling it that he knows exactly how that feeling feels. The cub stares back, silent and seemingly listening to every word. He tells it to stay alive and keep going, despite how much it hurts. With that, he turns away and starts walking toward the portal to the next floor. Suddenly, a sharp buzz of purple energy erupts behind him. He stops in his tracks, looking back over his shoulder at the sudden surge of mana. A system notification appears. A beast contract request is incoming. It lists passive skills that boost stats and provide a shared field of vision if the contract is accepted. Si Chen looks genuinely surprised, a bead of sweat on his face as he stares at the prompt. He didn't expect the cub to initiate the bond on its own. Lion King Leo sits on the sand, looking up with big, hopeful eyes. The system marks it as contractable and waiting for his response. The final prompt hangs in the air. Do you accept? Si Chen is faced with a choice that will give him his very first contracted beast.